Good afternoon. Welcome back. It is day 796. I'm sorry. No, it's day 17. It just feels like day 796 of the Alec Murdaugh double homicide trial. He's accused of killing his wife and son. We are at what I think is the very end of the prosecution's case in chief today, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. And with that, we are, as I said, towards the end of the state's case. The state said they are wrapping up their case tomorrow. They've promised a timeline witness, a witness who should establish how everything happened in order, what the cell phones mean, what the car means, what the new data from General Motors means. We should hear all of that tomorrow. Now, the defense has already put out there that they might object if their experts haven't had time to go over it. I don't know if the court's going to allow that. The court has talked about this case being protracted, has talked about this being a protracted trial. So I imagine if the defense is trying to protract the testimony, that the court is going to have some massive issues with it. So I don't think they're going to get to delay the state's witness who is interpreting the OnStar data that GM turned over, I don't know, on Friday of last week, even though they were subpoenaed to do so in March of 2021, or they said March of last year. I don't know why they waited so long, but the FBI had been trying to crack the encryption for like a year. Wild. This is all just why. No, sorry, 2022, March of 2022. This is all just wild stuff. I forget that it's 2023 because the murders happened in June 2021. It's just wild stuff. So with all of that, I'm going to roll the intro. We're going to wait for court to come back. They're on their sweet tea time. I still have nuggies. I did not have time to finish eating because I had stuff I had to do at lunch, because there's always stuff that has to be done. But I've got them. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. We're going to answer questions, and I'm going to give you, I've given you my thoughts. So we're going to roll. We're going to roll and wait for court to come back. Court was supposed to be back a few minutes ago. I run late. Court runs late. I feel like we're all on the same page. It's just going to be fine. We're all here together. It's our time, lovely law nerds, on this wonderful Valentine's Day. Let's go. Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not. Let's get into it. I was chewing ice and I was rushing to finish. A, Dr. B hates it when I chew ice. B, I don't want you all to have to hear it in the microphone because that's not delightful for any of us. But here we are. So let us roll into the things. Let us roll into the things as we wait for court to come back. There are lots of questions. I'm here to answer them. Oh, I should probably share my screen. Emily, do the things. Okay, the things are done now. We've done the things. Let's see. Can the defendant refuse or just not actively be in court during the trial? Yes, sort of. And also it depends on the court. This is a tough one because they have the absolute right to confrontation. So the defendant refusing to come out, a lot of times the courts will bring them out cuffed and shackled and sit them in the chair and be like, you're here. So it depends on the jurisdiction if the court is going to allow a defendant to be extemporaneous to the point where the trial continues outside of their presence. Because of the right against confrontation, or the right to confrontation, not the right against confrontation. It's been a long trial. Because of the right against, I'm going to say it again, because of the right to confrontation, your Sixth Amendment right to be confronted with the witnesses against you. People can't give testimony against you like in secret. You get to see that testimony when it comes to trials. You're going to have to make findings if the defendant can't be there, and you're going to have those findings made by the court. So there will absolutely be findings made, and it's time. And it takes time. So it's a difficult thing. But no, the defendant can't just nope their way out of being present. Findings have to be made. So That's where that is with it. So, welcome back, law nerds. Yes, absolutely. Emily, do the judge that decides how much time each party gets for opening and closing, or is it determined by the legislatures? It's determined by the judge jurisdictionally, case by case. And generally, in criminal cases, they will ask the judge or they will ask the attorneys, how long do you think it will take? And then they will make some kind of agreement, but they're not going to limit it. Opening and closings aren't fixed in time. In civil cases, the judge is like, we told this jury it would be this much time, and you are going to get done. You are going to get done. But we're not dealing with constitutional rights in the same way. We're dealing with constitutional rights here in a criminal trial. So we're not going to see the judge just narrowing it in. So with that, it is the judge determines it, it's regionally determined, and they determine it with the attorney. So it's a great question. AM is more upset when they talk about M. I think she was collateral. I have seen a lot of people think he's more upset when they talk about Paul. So again, I think it's just a matter of opinion on how you see his reactions in court, but I've seen both. I've seen people think both. EDB, glad to see you today. I've missed a lot the last 2 days. However, I watch when I can since the GOAT Courtcaster is live. Well, I appreciate that. I will take all of it. But yesterday afternoon was very interesting. Yesterday and today have had a lot of new information. Friday, I mean, I don't think there's not a ton on Friday that I can even remember. So, Jennifer said, if the car data was exculpatory, defense should have tried harder to get it from GM. I suspect it's either neutral or bad for the defense. The defense can do the same thing the state did and try to subpoena it. But if they're like, we gave you everything we have, I don't know what else they could have done. Like, it kind of puts the defense in a bad spot. If they say we've given you everything we still have, I don't know what else they can really do with that. So and that's a tough thing because they end up being stuck. So still not back to live court yet, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. It's interesting. You guys think there's differences. Blurry screen. I don't see me as being blurry. So try refreshing and make sure you check. In I think it's on this side in YouTube. I have to close my eyes to visualize it. I think it's on this side in YouTube, but check in the little wheel on what you're set to. Sometimes YouTube defaults down to a lower quality of stream. So you might be in a lower quality of stream. So for all of you who are saying, I want to hear from Cousin Eddie, I do too. Oh, Friday was Blanca. No, Friday was everything. Okay, don't miss Friday. Friday was everything. That's right. Friday was Blanca. It's been a long week. Last week was long. This weekend was long. This week is long. I have not had nearly enough sleep. So yes, thank you. Friday was Blanca. You don't want to miss Blanca. Blanca's testimony was great. Blanca's testimony was absolutely great. And we had some feistiness between the attorneys, some learning on how our objections go. And then when I do quick bits this week, which will probably be today, we will have a summary of the week. I just have to go back through and look. Truly, that's why I take notes. I'm almost done with my second notepad for this trial, but that's why I take notes. It's because I want to remember what I'm thinking about the testimony at the moment, and that is the best way for me to remember it at the moment is to take notes. So sometimes when I just pause and I'm looking down, it's because I'm taking notes on something specific. Hope you got my email. Yes, I definitely want the not fuckery on the hat. Artists, the team is in the email because I am streaming all day, so I'm sure that they have it if it's been sent. Are you surprised this trial is going so far over 3 weeks? No, I thought 3 weeks with jury selection was a fast estimate. Once we've always known they wanted to get into financial crimes, and seeing the way this prosecution team goes as deep into the weeds as possible with every little thing, like the way they presented the DNA evidence could have been done much more streamlined, but they went through it's this percentage Maggie versus an unknown. It's this percentage Maggie and Alec versus 2 unknown. They went through every single equation instead of saying the equations are this. Okay, so as to this item, who is it here? As to that item, who is it here? They have taken the long way round on every single thing. So once we started seeing the way that they work, I'm not surprised at all that we've gone so far afield. We are in the weeds. Yeah, so Friday was good. Friday was good. Blanca, Friday afternoon. Well, whenever Blanca's testimony started, and that's why we timestamped these, because replay crew love you. So we timestamped these so that you can find it. So yesterday was the Emmy, and that's been good. DNA was good, but it took the long way around. Just watch the what was I going to say? The cross-examination of that, because that was better. All right. Let's see if the lawyers have anything, and if not, we will bring the jury. Yeah, we live in the weeds now. It's extreporous.
Okay, our witness.
It's protracted, and we live in the weeds. So they are bringing the witness to the stand. We are going to be resuming with cross-examination of the forensic accountant. If I'm the defense, I'm asking one question and sitting the fuck down. I don't know what they need to ask.
They bring the jury.
Bring the jury. As they bring the jury, I'm going to thank our stream sponsor, because we have a sponsor this stream, y'all. So we're going to thank them because it takes them about a minute to bring in the jury. So as we bring the jury, let's thank our sponsor. Thank you to Love and Pies for sponsoring today's stream. Prepping for trials and covering trials can be tremendously stressful. And you know, one of the ways I love to unwind is with a good casual mobile game. One of the things that has kept me invested in Love and Pies is the really fun storyline, the fact that we're meeting different characters, and it's a really easy, free to download Merge 2 game, and you're creating baked goods. It is so sweet. The graphics are really fun and charming, and you get to decorate and rebuild your cafe and try to solve some mysteries along the way. Your goal is to build a thriving cafe while you're uncovering dark family secrets. And of course, you get a little cozy mystery with a dash of humor. So escape into the wholesome-ish world of Appleton as a perfect way to switch off from your daily routine and have a little time to yourself. I can't wait to hear what you think of Love and Pies. It is free to download, and you can download Love and Pies now with the link below. Thank you again for sponsoring this stream. All right, let's get back to it. We have brought the jury, and they're here. We are starting our cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bernie.
Afternoon, Mr.
Y'all, if you need a distraction from this trial, I'll tell you what, that game is so fun.
Sure, we understand what you've done. You did a analysis of various bank accounts, seeing deposits in and money out. Is that correct?
The pie.
So for the tracing, it was specifically the alleged stolen funds. I would just trace them out as they went through the bank accounts using that first in, first out method.
Did you analyze
the flashing cameras
any
are weird today?
Accounts that were stolen, what you contend to be stolen funds, were not deposited into?
I didn't know there was an Appleton, Wisconsin.
There's probably one or two accounts, maybe stolen money didn't hit, but any account under Alex Murdaugh's name at Palmetto State Bank and Bank of America, those were the primary two accounts.
But I mean, you're aware that he earned income as a practicing attorney?
Yes, yes.
And did you segregate that monthly income?
Yes. So what I would do is, prior to these funds going into those accounts, using that first.
So we
in, first out
accommodated
method,
for the legitimate income.
Whatever income
Okay.
or deposit was in that account prior to, so we could separate each check out.
And you, in your testimony here today,
Cross-examination,
for the most part, limited your analysis to the $792,000 of the Ferris fee. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the only tracing we went over to.
Okay. And then at the end, you testified about essentially Mr. Murdaugh's.
okay. All of you from Appleton. Hi.
I guess it was a analysis of liabilities versus assets.
Right.
About
so,
whether he had enough to pay A, B, and C.
Right. So what I did for the date of June 7th, the accounts we had, I looked at balances in addition to outstanding loans. So that's how I was able to determine that.
And that was just purely balances in financial accounts. Is that right?
That's correct.
And did that include any analysis of his 401k or retirement account?
No, in the balance sheet I had no, because those were in retirement accounts.
Okay.
So obviously, you have tax implications and penalties and fees associated with those.
You
And
can't
did
just
that
grab the
analysis
money.
include
But
the
That's a
value
very
of any
fair
real estate
point.
holdings?
So I was just looking at outstanding, what he owed the bank.
That's an
I didn't have
interesting
up to
point.
date June
Did
7th,
you look at all of
2021,
his
Incredibles
assets?
Forever
How can you determine he
land
doesn't have this
owned.
money if you're not
Sure.
looking at retirement and
And I think we all understood
property.
your answer, but your answer is no, it did not include an analysis of any equity in real estate holdings. Is that correct?
No, because I would not be able to determine that to the date.
And your analysis also did not include any interest he may have in real estate partnerships, correct?
Such as Redbeard and Zero United.
Well, let's start there. Redbeard and Zero United.
So I just had the loan statements and outstanding principal on that. And as we know, they were charged off, I believe, in 2012, and interest
That's
was
very
accruing, but
interesting.
This is just a principal balance that I was looking at. for
Right, but
those.
you didn't look to see what the value of Redbeard was and the value of United was.
He did have
No,
double mortgages.
I had no idea what they would have been in June 7th, 2021.
And were you aware that he was had equity interest in a real estate partnership that owned the PMPED law firm building in Hampton?
I became aware when I saw he was paid out of that account at the end in October, I believe.
But that's
And then
not
I would see
accessible
occasionally-
liquid.
I called him rent checks. I think every month or so he would get a few thousand
Okay.
from that ownership.
But in your
Smart.
testimony of sort of a snapshot on June 7th, you didn't take into account
I
the
love
value
Jim.
of his
It's
interest
just like
in the
Jim just comes in
PMPED
with
law firm building,
disappointed.
did you?
So
It's
I
like,
was
I'm not
looking at
mad.
liquid assets.
I'm
so
just disappointed.
Would he have the ability
didn't
that
look
day
at
to
this shit,
pay
did
those
you?
amounts?
It's an interesting affect. Okay.
All right.
You didn't.
And I take it then you also didn't take into account his ability to raise capital through borrowing money from Palmetto State Bank if he needed to.
So I was only looking at outstanding loans. So
This is a good
I
cross
can't
examination.
comment whether or
You
not he
didn't.
could-
You didn't. You
we
didn't.
know
you
after
didn't,
the
you
fact
didn't.
he got a loan from the bank, but at that time I
It's
wouldn't
good.
know what he's eligible for or not eligible for. If he
Well-
wanted to take out an additional loan.
Well, we know before the fact that he had never been turned down for a loan at Palmetto State Bank, correct?
To my
They
knowledge,
didn't even have to apply for him. They
We
just
know
gave him the
before
money,
fact that he had
Jim.
paid Palmetto State Bank in over $4 million in interest payments. Don't we know that?
I've not calculated that myself, but if that's what you're representing.
It is a
Well,
bold move.
We know before the fact that the chairman of the board of Palmetto State Bank's position was, if Alec Murdaugh wants a loan from the bank, we'll make it happen.
They were making
You're
it
aware of that, aren't
rain.
you?
That's my understanding.
So there was no, and just to be clear, you weren't telling the jury that on June 7th,
You weren't telling this jury that, were you?
Mr. Murdaugh's financial freight train was about to go off to the ravine.
That is
That's not what
not
you
an
were telling
appropriate
this jury.
analogy, Jim.
I was just looking at the account balances, outstanding loans, the fact that more money had to be borrowed to pay back the Chris Wilson fees.
Oh, that audio's horrible.
And he borrowed money from his partner, Johnny Parker. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you know before the fact that Mr. Parker frequently loaned money to other partners in the firm because the cash flow in their business was, not great until the end of the year.
I know Johnny Parker loaned Alex money. I'm not sure about the other partners, but you are correct.
I'm gonna have to
He did
switch feeds in a
loan
minute.
money.
Now, in your analysis of the $792,000, you testified that a
Yeah,
large
if
percent of
the
the money
audio keeps getting this way, I'm
went
gonna have to
to-
switch it.
associates, and then the rest went to pay credit card bills, right?
Generally speaking, without getting into a granular level.
Sure.
We
Well, can
live
you
in a granular
generally
level.
tell me-
Sure is to cut him off.
Approximately how much money of the $792,000 was sent to Curtis Eddie Smith?
From my tracing, approximately $500,000
Of the 792.
of the 792. Yes, sir.
So 500,000 of the 792 went to
One
Cousin
second,
Eddie.
Your Honor.
That's interesting. So when they trace the 792 coming in, and again,
Direct.
Jim's done with his questions. We're getting into redirect.
Burney, you indicated that
Oh,
you
leave it alone.
were looking at liquid assets on June 7th. 2021. Is that
Liquid.
correct?
Was that fun
That
for
is-
you to say?
Did I understand your testimony a moment ago correctly that that's what you were looking at?
Yes.
Oh my, okay.
Mr. Burney, do you
Y'all,
own a home?
I can't.
I do.
I can't.
That is.
It probably was leading.
Did I understand your testimony a moment ago correctly that that's what you were looking at?
Yes.
You read that correctly.
Mr. Burney, do you own a home?
I do.
So you've gone through the process of purchasing land before, is that correct?
A couple of times, yes, sir.
A couple times.
Good for you.
When you were buying, or let me rephrase my question here. Did you ever sell any real estate?
I have once.
Was it an instant process or did it take some time?
It took months
Months.
from listing to closing. Yes.
So
Good redirect,
did you
counsel.
get the money for your real estate
It takes
right
too
when you
long.
sold it, or did it take all the way to closing to get that money?
Took all the way to closing.
It takes too long.
So if Mr. Murdaugh needed money from his real estate interests through sell, would that have taken some time?
I imagine, yes.
Well, not the way he does it. The bank just gives him money. Real estate takes time. Great. Just let it go. I want to hear from Cousin Eddie next. Cousin Eddie. So out of the $792 that, or $792,000 that came from Chris Wilson, Alec took it.
Did I hear you correctly a moment ago in your
Gave
testimony?
$500,000 to Cousin Eddie.
Or acknowledge in your testimony the possibility that Mr. Murdaugh paid over $4 million in interest to Palmetto State Bank on various loans.
That's what Mr. Griffin represented. I had not done the calculations myself.
As you indicated a moment ago, what was your aim again in tracing these funds?
Looking at their ultimate dispositions, where the money went to.
Did you start with particular instruments and then go from there?
I did.
And in analyzing where the funds from those instruments went, did a portion of those instruments go to loan payments
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
at Palmetto
Those
State
are
Bank?
proper
Yes.
objections. They
Loan
don't
payments
do
at
those
Palmetto
here.
State Bank and to
They don't
pay
do
back
objections,
loans
Rob.
from other individuals.
And did a significant portion of those funds go towards paying that $4+ million in interest to Palmetto State Bank?
Dude,
Yes.
you're missing the
And did
point.
that represent a
500,000 to
significant
Cousin Eddie
portion
when?
of where the stolen
Because
funds
the
were
defense is
ultimately
going to argue
disposed?
he paid Cousin Eddie
Yes.
for what? When did that $500,000 go to? When? When?
Step down.
Why does nobody ask when? Ask
The
when.
next witness.
Ooh, be Cousin Eddie.
All right, the state calls Marian Proctor.
Nope. Marianne Proctor. Marian or Marianne? I'm not sure which. Everybody's switching seatsies in court.
Marian Proctor.
Is being walked in by what looks like the state's witness coordinator. I couldn't tell if it's Marian or Marianne. I think this is Maggie's sister.
Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth,
Wow.
whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? All right, you go this way. Sit right up here.
Maggie's
Roll down for the rest of the
sister.
last name, and then move the microphone where they can hear you.
I'm glad that the yelling is helpful. It helps me too. Yep. Well, this will be interesting.
I'm Marian Proctor, Proctor.
Good afternoon, Ms. Proctor.
Hi.
Go ahead and tell the jury, do you have any relationship to Maggie and Paul?
I am Maggie's sister, and Paul is my nephew.
Can you pull that mic just a little bit closer or slide
She
the
does
chair
not
up just a
want to
little
be
bit so you don't
here.
have to lean forward?
Okay.
At all.
And is that a fresh bottle of water there? I don't know.
It is.
Oh, it is, that's your water?
Yes.
She brought it with you, Creighton. She doesn't
Go ahead
trust you
and,
to not
if
give her
would tell us a
Dasani.
little bit about yourself, just where you grew up.
She's not drinking
just a little bit
Dasani.
about yourself.
Did
so
you
they
go to
get know you
Wade
just
Hampton
a
High
little bit.
School?
Okay. I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. Maggie and I did. She was my only sibling, with two
It
parents.
was
And
heartbreaking.
we both went to college, both married, both lived in South Carolina. We've been here ever since. I'm married. I have 3 daughters, and we live in the Charleston area,
Where did Maggie go to college?
South Carolina.
Did she go somewhere else and then transfer to South Carolina?
She did.
What does it matter?
How far apart are you and Maggie?
5 years.
And your parents, what are their names?
Terry and Kennedy.
And do y'all have any other siblings, or was it just you and Maggie?
It's just Maggie and me.
Growing up, being 7 years apart as younger folks, was that a bit of an age difference as y'all grew up?
It was. For children, that's a lot. So, I was in college. She was in high school.
And once you get older, it doesn't fucking matter.
So we weren't super close when we were children, but later on, as our lives became more similar, we
Married
became very
kids.
close.
And how long ago do you think that relationship grew very close?
When the children were little, we did a lot together. It was easy. As they got older with, their commitment, sports and things like that, it was mostly holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. And then when we both became empty nesters, we were having a really good time
Y'all talk almost every day.
almost every day.
Tell the jury a little bit about Maggie. How would you describe her to somebody, just so they can get an idea of who she was?
Maggie was sweet. She was kind of a free spirit. She was always up for anything that was going on. She loved her family. She loved her boys. Buster and Paul were her world.
Every witness has said that.
She loved my parents. We, joked how we would grow old together and take care of them. And she was just a really, really good person.
Was Maggie a tomboy at all, or was she more of a girl's girl?
No, she was definitely a girl's girl.
I wonder if they're gonna get to
but
her not hunting.
She made the best of having 2 boys.
wonder if
She
they're gonna
was
get to her
right in
not
there
being a
fishing,
hunter.
hunting.
Oh,
She didn't grow up doing that. We used to laugh that she'd get in the deer stand with her Southern Living magazine, and the boys would tell her she was making too much noise turning the pages. And then, fishing. She loved going out on the boat. She loved being at the beach. She loved going to the islands. I don't know that she really fished that much, but
She
she
would
just
get in the deer
wanted to
stand
do
with
what
a
they were
Southern
doing.
Living
She wanted to
magazine,
spend time with them.
and she was flipping the pages
What
too
about
loud.
the Gamecocks?
She was a big Gamecock fan.
Are you a Gamecock fan?
I'm a big Clemson fan.
I'll still manage to get along.
We got along great. We did. And we were together a lot on those Clemson, Carolina days. And we would have a big time.
Did she say we would have a big time? I love that phrase.
Being kind of a girl's girl, did she like spending time with you and your daughters and getting a chance to do those sorts of things?
She loved it. She and my girls loved their Aunt Maggie. She always, said that she was their favorite aunt. And she just, loved catching up on all the latest makeup and, hair trends and shoes. And she just loved doing girl stuff with us.
I heard 5 years old.
Did Maggie work over the years, or was she focused on taking care of the boys and raising them?
She was mostly a stay-at-home mom. She had a little shop in Hampton for a while. She and Miss Libby did that together. So that was fun. She was real involved with the boys' schools, all their sporting events. I don't think she probably ever missed one. But she was mostly a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, I heard her say 5. Creighton wasn't listening.
What about Paul? Did you get to know him, obviously, your
Creighton's
nephew?
not listening at all.
Tell the jury just a little bit about Paul and what he was like.
Paul was
We've heard a lot about
Sweet, sweet boy.
the defendant, and now we're hearing about the victims.
Misrepresented in the media. He had such a kind side to him. He was always wanting to help. You know, Aunt Marian, does Uncle Bart need some wood? He'd bring us a load of wood. He was a kind soul, and I loved him a lot.
Was Maggie very involved in the family finances, to your knowledge?
Not at all.
Explain to the jury a little bit, if you would.
The jury doesn't need that to be
They had a
explained. They
comfortable
get it.
life. Maggie was happy. It wasn't a lavish life, but it was a comfortable life. And,
The inverse of lavish lifestyle.
I mean, money just, it was never an issue for her that she knew about.
That you know about?
Right.
I think you said you don't think Maggie ever balanced a checkbook because finances wasn't.
She didn't. So I was the sister who balanced it to the penny and went crazy if I made a mistake in my checkbook. Maggie's was in the floor of her car with all of her bills thrown all over it. And she didn't. Organization was not her best skill.
Me. It's me.
Mr. Randolph.
It's me.
Paul's grandfather. Did you know him?
I did.
And then his spouse was who?
Miss Libby.
Towards the end of Maggie Paul's life, can you tell the jury just a little bit about Miss Libby's health?
Miss Libby had Alzheimer's and wasn't too bad at first, but she's been declining for years. And it's real bad now. I think she stays in bed all day. She doesn't recognize her family. And she has to be helped to do everything. She can't feed herself or go to the bathroom or do anything.
Back in June of 2021, was her condition similar in that regard?
Yes.
Back in June of 2021, was Mr. Randolph suffering any health issues?
Mr.
We already
Randolph
know
was
that.
really sick.
Miss Libby is still
He
alive.
had lots of different things wrong with him.
We know
And I
all of this,
think
and I
that,
don't know why they're establishing it with her unless it's to help her be
His
more
days were-
comfortable.
Coming close to an end.
So it's just, I don't
In the days
know
leading up
why
to
we're here.
Paul and Maggie's death, had the
'Cause we know
family
this.
received some not encouraging news about Mr. Randolph's
Correct.
prognosis.
Correct. I
And
think
we know-
that
we know all of that.
They felt like everything had been done for him that could be done.
The money
But
questions
I'm not
matter.
sure Mr. Randolph wanted anything else done to him either. It had been a long road for him.
It might be to make this
Um,
witness more comfortable because they're going to get into really
Back
hard
up a little
testimony.
bit. The family, Alec and Maggie's family.
I'll switch the other
properties,
stream once it stops
Did they have a house in Hampton at one time?
They did. They built that house.
selling the house.
And
We
did
moved
they
to
have
get to.
a beach house?
They did
And where was that?
at a stone.
And when did they get the beach house roughly? Do you recall?
Oh, gosh.
How old were the kids? It's the easiest way to figure it
I
out.
really don't know. They've had it for a long time, 15. I really don't know. I'm sorry.
And what about Moselle? They had that property as well?
Yes, Moselle was their most recent property. And it was kind of a hunting plantation type place. Great setup for hunting everything and lots of beds for Alec to have men come out and have hunts and not Maggie's favorite place to be, but the boys loved it.
Sure. And in the summertime, where did Maggie typically prefer to be? At a stow? Or?
She loved the beach, yes.
Are you familiar with what people refer to as the boat crash?
I am.
This is
And
where
to
the
your general recollection,
misrepresented,
that happened around February of 2019.
misrepresented to the,
Correct.
by the media comes in.
After the boat crash, Did the family and particularly Maggie feel like what she felt some sort of backlash in the community or some sort of negative
and
reaction? that bothered her?
speculative.
She did. That was a devastating blow for their family. It was a horrible accident, but it was an accident. And Maggie felt like the Hampton community had turned against her. And Paul was being mistreated. People would say mean things to him, call him names, social media, inappropriate things were said to him. Inappropriate things were said to him when he went back to school. And it was very hard on the family. It was very stressful.
Is that also part of the reason that Maggie preferred staying in Edisto?
I think so, yes.
During this time period,
It's
did
a law number.
Maggie
It's
start
horrible.
looking for a house somewhere else?
She did.
This is important.
They sold their Hampton house.
Does she know why?
And she was looking in the Hilton Head, Bluffton area for something. She had been looking in that area for a while.
Okay. Did she find anything she liked?
She did. She found one house that she just loved, and she called me and my parents to come down and take a look at it. And I believe Alec was there too. And she really thought that they might make an offer on that house, but in the end, they did not. I think Alec advised her that the timing was just not right with the boat case going on.
With the boat case going on?
Well, there is some of the money stuff.
So we move closer to June 7th of 2021. I believe you testified that the family had received some bad prognosis on Mr. Randolph. Is that correct?
Yes. Maggie called me.
Maggie clearly wanted to leave
That
Hampton.
day and said she was at Edisto. She had some men working on the house, and Mr. Randolph was not doing well at all. And
This is
Alec
what I
really
wanted to
wanted her
hear.
to come home that night. She hadn't planned on it, but that he needed her to come home, and Paul was going to be there too. And I said, well, Maggie, I said, Alec and his dad are super close, and that's probably what you should do. Go be with him if he needs you.
Oh, the poor thing.
She said that Alec wanted her to come home that night.
Yes.
And what was your understanding of Maggie's intent or what they were going to do that night?
I was under the impression they were going over to Alameda to visit his parents.
And that's why Alec wanted Maggie to come home?
Correct.
Together.
That was from your conversation with her.
Yes.
She called you to let you know that that's what Alec had called her about?
Yes.
This is for state of mind. And I think that's why the defense is not objecting, because then Creighton would soliloquy about it.
You said she was having some work done at Edisto on June 7th?
Yes. Just maintenance work, getting it ready for the summer.
If they were supposed to go see his parents, why not drive by the kennels if she doesn't answer the call? That's
You encouraged her to go to Murdaugh.
Ew, Creighton.
I did.
He
That
just wants her to
last time
cry
you
at this
talked to her?
point.
Yes. Thank you.
Blanca did testify to the same thing. But Creighton is doing his job. You encouraged her to go.
All right. You remember about what time of day that was?
I think it was around 4:00 in the afternoon. I think Maggie loved to call me when she was driving. She was always driving from, Moselle to Edisto to Charleston. And I think it was around 4 that afternoon.
I think the reason he followed it up, not just to get an emotional
What was
response,
the rest of your day like?
but
Just a normal
also
day?
to say Maggie didn't want to go.
Just a
She
normal
needed to be
day.
encouraged by her sister. She was not going to be there.
Go to bed
There
that
is a
evening?
valid point to it. It just hurts my heart for this witness.
Actually, we were
And
not
I don't
in
have to be in
bed.
court doing the job, so
We
I
were
get
watching
to
a
have a
movie. It was
heart.
just Barton and me at home that night.
Bart, your
and-
husband? Tell me how you found out.
John,
real
I didn't
close.
even realize this was going on. We were watching a movie and Bart had gotten up to, I thought, go into the kitchen, and he had a text from John Marvin saying that a text from Randy, saying that there had been a tragedy, and could Bart please call him on his cell phone? He had called on Alec's cell phone, but wanted Bart to call him back on his cell phone.
So what happened?
So Bart went outside and called him. So I still didn't know anything was going on, and told him that
It seems like Alec didn't
Maggie
call
and Paul
them.
had been shot. They were dead.
What was your reaction?
I just couldn't believe it. I didn't think it was true. I said, there has to be a mistake. I said, there's got to be some explanation. It just can't be them.
What'd y'all do after that?
Alec's brothers texted
We
them.
gathered up our things and we went to tell my parents. And
Where do they live?
they live in Somerville. My mom had just had knee replacement surgery. So when we got to Somerville, I called and I said, Mom, we're on the way, and we've got some bad news to share, but I want to be with you. And so she was sitting in her recliner chair with her leg all bundled up. And so we got there, and both of my parents were there. And I think my mom went into shock. She just
It was a call me
couldn't be
text.
still. And
It was a call me
she
text
just kept making these noises.
from Alec's brothers.
And
It was a call me, but he did not
It
not
was
call
just the
their
worst.
family.
Did you go to Moselle at any point?
Of course it was the worst.
We pretty much stayed with my parents all night. We went back home, showered, and then we all went to Moselle the next morning.
Over the next few days, were y'all staying back in Somerville and going to Moselle, or what were you and your parents doing in Barton?
So we had family coming in from Kentucky, and some of them were staying with me, some of them were staying with my parents, but we were in Moselle every day. We were planning the funeral, we were in Moselle every day after that until the funeral.
As hard as it is, this is needed
So that-
testimony.
Shock of finding out last for a while?
I'm sorry,
Did that shock of finding out last for a while?
it's still hard to face.
When you got to Moselle, did you see Alec, the defendant?
I did.
Did y'all hug?
We did.
Cry?
He's
We
definitely
did.
going to ask if they cried.
Over the course of the next couple of days, or in the aftermath, as the shock was wearing off just a little bit, did you have any conversation with Alec about what had happened?
I didn't talk to Alec a lot. Alec was just really busy, and the whole town was coming to see him, and he was very, very, very torn up. I did at one point ask him if Maggie had suffered, and he assured me that she did not.
Oh.
Now, I don't know that I think
Oh.
that's true.
Oh. Oh.
And I asked if Paul had suffered, and he said no. And then later I asked him, I said, Alec, do you have any idea who's done this. I said, we have got to find out who could do this. And he said that he did not know who it was, but he felt like whoever did it had thought about it for a really long time.
Whoever had done it had thought about it for a really long time.
What?
Did that strike you as odd?
I just didn't know what that meant.
What? Chat. Law nerds, what? Creighton's pacing here is very good.
Were you ever privy or having a
Letting that
discussion
sink
with
in.
anything Alex said about whether or not he went to the kennels that night?
I personally did not talk to him about that, but he told my mom that he had dinner
That's
with
all
Maggie and
kinds of
Paul, and
hearsay.
then he took a nap, which he did. That was kind of a routine. He would lay down on the sofa at night after work and take a nap.
But he said he never went to the kennel.
Correct.
Can we go back to whoever did this has been thinking about it a really long time? Can we go back to that, Creighton? Can we go back? You literally repeat everything else in this trial. Can we go back to that?
After your conversation with Maggie,
I don't give a fuck about his nap
your
anymore.
last conversation with her,
Wow.
did it strike
Wow.
you as odd that she didn't go to the kennels or go to Alameda with Alec?
Yes,
And why is that?
That was her point.
because that's the whole reason she went home that night.
Did you think from your conversation with Maggie that she was planning to see Mr. Randolph too?
I thought so. I didn't realize that Mr. Randolph wasn't there at the time.
That was a surprise to you?
It was a surprise to her because Maggie told her that Alec wanted her to come home to go see Mr. Randolph, but Mr. Randolph was in the hospital, not at
In
Alameda.
the days and weeks following Maggie and Paul's murder, did Alec ever say anything about the boat case?
We would talk about the boat case. And he was very intent on clearing Paul's name.
What did he say?
He said that his number one goal was clearing Paul's name. And I thought that was so strange because my number one goal was to find out who killed my sister and Paul.
Bingo.
But that wasn't Alec's concern, main concern?
I know he must have wanted that too, but it just, I don't know how he could have thought about anything else.
But he talked about the boat case.
Wow.
Did he ever act scared or afraid that the
I wish you
real,
would have asked, are
the
you
real killers
still?
were out there somewhere or anything like that? Or was he concerned with the boat case?
We were afraid. We didn't know what was going on. My family was scared. I was scared for Alec and Buster. I felt like they needed protection. I think everybody was afraid. And Alec didn't seem to be afraid.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Did he also talk about getting Buster back into law school
Yes.
after the murders? Maggie loved those dogs, didn't she?
She did.
She liked going down there and playing with them.
She did.
Would she tend to walk down there, or would she take another way to get down there?
If she was dieting, she'd walk. Sometimes she'd ride her bicycle, and she'd take her car. She'd go, just whatever she felt like. Take her car, take one of the golf cart things.
She wasn't a hunter, though, was she?
No.
What'd you think about those AR style guns that the boys have?
She seemed to be fine with those. I remember when she wanted to give them those for Christmas, and I just growing up with girls and not in the hunting world, I said, Maggie,
Those are wild.
why would you give those boys those guns? And she said they love to shoot hogs, and which I understood that the hogs were tearing up their property, but it just scared me that that the boys would have such a dangerous weapon. But I know nothing about guns, so.
Wow. Look at Creighton's pacing with this witness.
1 second.
He is capable of slowing down. She asked if he thought Maggie and Paul suffered, and he said no.
Thank you for testifying. Please answer any questions. the defense may
She
have.
asked Alec who did this because she wanted to find
Mr.
the
Griffin.
murderer. And Alec said, I don't know, but whoever did this has been thinking about it a really long time. And then he said, I just want to clear Paul's name. And she's like, I want to find who murdered my sister. And she doesn't believe Alec anymore. And Jim Griffin knows her. This makes it so awkward for me. Did he go try to get some more Kleenex? She didn't use the ones she had. Jim. And you know her. How do you cross-examine someone you know? Oh.
I'm sorry, this is hard for me too. Maggie was a very special person, wasn't she?
She was.
Why are you
And
the attorney
she and Alec
cross-examining
had
this
a
witness,
very
Jim?
special relationship,
Why is this the
They did.
choice?
and they had a very special family, did they not?
They did.
And they loved to do things together as a family, didn't they?
They did.
And it just wasn't Alec and Maggie and Paul and Buster, but your parents were part of their family, right?
Yes.
And I doubt you've heard all the testimony here in court, but a lot of Paul's friends
She
refer
hasn't
to
been
your
here.
dad as Papa T. Is that what people refer to him as?
Yes.
And your mother as Grandma.
Yes.
And it sort of seemed like Paul and Buster's friends were part of your parents' extended family. Is that right?
Yes.
And you and your husband and Bart and your children,
Oh, this was a choice.
y'all would all vacation together with, not necessarily with
This is a choice.
Buster and Paul's friends, but with Maggie and Alec and Paul and Buster, and y'all did things as a family a lot. Did you
We
know?
did.
And Alec was really close to your parents, wasn't he?
Jim
Yes.
didn't have to do this. This is a choice.
And he considered your dad as one of his best friends, I believe.
He was very kind to my dad.
Right. And y'all would vacation. I think you and your husband have a house in the Keys. You would vacation there, right?
Correct?
And y'all do a lot together. You place up in off Lake Kiowee.
Correct.
And I mean, you said Maggie was a girl, but she took to the boys and learned to be
Alec
a
did say
mother
the
of
only thing
two
they fought about
rambunctious
were
sons, right?
his in-laws
did.
in his
And,
police interview.
And you said earlier that about sporting events that Maggie never missed any of Paul and Buster's sporting events. Is that right?
Correct.
And Alec was there right by Maggie at every sporting event, wasn't he?
Coaching.
coaching most of the time, right?
This is introducing more character evidence. It's not a conflict that they know each other. It's not a legal conflict. I think it's an emotional conflict. And I think it's odd, but it's a choice the defense made. Jim is a family friend.
The weeks leading up to the horrific day of June the 7th, you had a family get together up at Kiwi,
We did.
and your daughter was, you're having a baby shower for your daughter.
Right.
You're about to be a grandmother for the first time.
Yes.
And where was it?
When was it?
Where? Was
Where?
it? Yeah.
My daughter lives in Greenville.
Okay. And it was the weekend, I think, of May 21st.
I think it was the weekend before Memorial Day weekend.
Right. And I'm going to show you a photo and see if you recognize this photo.
This is all going to character.
And it's Defendant's Exhibit 122.
Yes.
I see you,
You
chat.
recognize that?
What, if any,
I took that
relevance?
picture.
You took that picture.
I did.
Your Honor,
This
we would
is-
introduce
this is
Defendant
character
122 in
testimony.
evidence this time.
No objection, Your Honor.
Submit it.
Can you pull up 122, Doug? You know, I'm not sure, Marian, if the jury has actually seen a picture of Maggie in this trial. She's obviously the only female here in this photo.
Mhm.
And y'all favor each other greatly, right?
We do.
And this was a weekend, just a couple of, I mean, you said the weekend before Memorial Day, right? And that's Buster on the left,
Yes.
and that's Paul,
Right.
and then Maggie and Alex, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. You can take that down. Did you see Maggie again after being with her up in above Greenville?
We do not have
I did not.
the
So
timeline
that
witness.
was the
Yes.
last time you were together with her?
Mhm. She, they were at Edisto for Memorial Day, and then the next weekend was my birthday, and we were back in the upstate. And then I
And-
got
and-
the call on Monday.
And you understand, the weekend after Memorial Day, Alec and Maggie went to Columbia for a super regional baseball game with Buster and his girlfriend Brooklyn.
Right,
You were aware of that?
I am.
And you mentioned that Maggie was a big Carolina fan and Alec was a big Carolina fan, right?
They both graduated from there.
And they went to a lot of.
She
the
doesn't want to talk about
Carolina
Alec at
sporting
all. Look at her
events
face.
As a couple,
Yes.
right?
She doesn't want to talk about Alec at all.
And leading up to.
Keep asking about Alec, Jim. I want to see how mad she is. Go on. I'm much more comfortable with rage.
June 7th. Let me back up. I know we've talked about this, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but
It's gonna.
Ooh.
Maggie did a lot for Alex's mom and dad, but didn't it make her somewhat sad to go over and visit his mother because of her condition?
Absolutely.
And it was really not high on her list of things that she wanted to do.
Maggie went there a lot. She just didn't feel like she needed to go every day like Alec liked to go.
And Alec would go every day and sometimes more than once a day.
As much as he could, he did.
And
He, but Maggie cared for Mr. Randolph, and I know she loved him. I'm talking about she would, prepare food for him and tried to spoil him, wouldn't she?
It was the no salt diet.
Right.
And they were all struggling to cook food that he would eat with no salt.
That is a
she
struggle.
Experimented with different things, hopefully that he would enjoy, right?
Right. The whole family was taking turns and trying to
And,
provide meals.
And now that on the 7th, I think in the afternoon, and we'll establish this later, but
I'm going to try to
around
switch
4,
feeds real
4:30,
quick.
Mr. Randolph got admitted back to the
They're talking
hospital.
about Mr. Randolph going back to the hospital.
Afterwards, you found out she did.
I want to see Alex's face
But
now that the flashing has stopped.
knowing that Alex's dad was not there and he was back in the hospital, it doesn't really seem that odd anymore, does it?
Oh,
Probably not.
about not going to see
Um,
Alex's dad instead of just going to see Alex's mom. I guess I could have waited a second to switch feeds. It's hard to know when Jim's going to be linear and moving quickly and not. But you could tell when she talks about Alex, she is not happy. She said it in her direct testimony. I don't know if I believe that anymore. She definitely has questions. A lot of questions. And the prosecution didn't poke too much.
You and Bart received an awful phone call on the night of the 7th about Maggie and Paul's death, right?
We did.
And it was from John Marmon.
Randy. I'm
Randy.
sorry, I misspoke earlier.
And one of the requests was that you and Bart go and tell your parents in person, right?
Alex told the police I have to call her parents.
Well, I don't know that they requested, but I knew we had to do that in person.
So you did that in person.
Alex
Yes.
said
And then the
to
next
the
day-
police when they first arrived, I
Came
have
to-
to call her parents.
Moselle with your parent.
Correct.
And Alex, was he grieving greatly?
Oh, terribly.
I mean, people have
We were all-
described him as being destroyed. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes.
She's doing a very good job of just answering.
And
what
Buster
she's
was there?
asked.
Yes.
I jumped ahead, but
You do
leading
that.
up, and Maggie enjoyed being at Edisto over Moselle in the summertime.
Correct. I think most people would.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it a lot more than being at Moselle.
Right.
But Alec had to stay at Moselle, or did stay at Moselle, because his work was right there in Hampton, right?
Right.
And
He's trying to get to the
And,
fact that they're not separated. They're living in different places for
Alec
practical
was
reasons.
constantly wanting Maggie to come back and stay with him at Moselle, wasn't he?
What?
Perhaps. I'm not sure. I don't think he really liked being by himself.
But
He seemed to need a lot of people to take care
when
of
he asked
him.
Maggie to come back
That's for
on
sure.
the 7th, I mean, you didn't think that was really an unusual request, because he wanted to be with Maggie.
Right.
He didn't
No.
like to be by himself.
I did not think it was unusual, and that's why I encouraged her to do so.
And you, from your conversation with Maggie, you knew that Paul was going to be there,
Correct.
right? And
And Paul was also not planning on being there. That's why it was.
And
That's
you know
why it was
what?
specifically stated.
Whether,
And Paul will be there because he wasn't going to
you
be
know
there
what,
either, and it
why Paul
was
was gonna be there?
specifically
Have you heard?
stated.
I didn't know at the time. I know now.
That's but anyway, he
If Maggie expected Paul to be there, it wouldn't have needed to be
and you
stated.
encouraged Maggie to go be with Alec, because his dad was in bad shape. Right?
Right.
Now, after Maggie and Paul were murdered, Mr. Randolph died 2 days later, I believe, or 3 days. So it was a very difficult time for everyone, wasn't it?
Very.
And there were 2 funerals, one on a Saturday for Maggie and Paul, and one on Sunday for Mr. Randolph, right? And then
She never answered for the
after a
record.
day or so,
He doesn't
did
even care
Alec
because he's just talking.
and Buster come to Somerville and stay with your parents?
Yes.
And did they stay with your parents a lot after the murders?
Yes, especially Alec.
Yeah, Alec. And to your knowledge, did Alec ever spend another night at Moselle after the murders?
He did not.
She stayed with your parents. He visited with you and your husband and family down at Key West at sometime at the end of July. Is that right?
He did.
And then he and Buster came up to Greenville up at one point in time.
They did.
And then and he was staying with his brother Randy at times. He was all over the place.
How would she
He
know
was.
that?
Now, you mentioned that after the murders that Alex said that he was very intent on clearing Paul's name from the voting act, right? And you knew that Maggie felt very strongly that Paul was not driving the boat when the beautiful Mallory Beach came to her tragic death, right?
Correct.
I mean, Maggie was adamant. She was on a mission to clear Paul's name, was she not?
Sort of.
Sort of. And she was, and you're not critical of Alex for wanting to clear Paul's name after he was murdered, do you? Are you?
She was
I'm not
surprised,
critical.
Jim.
About that at all. I think that was his way of honoring Paul after he was gone. I just thought his priority should have been focusing on finding out who killed Maggie and Paul.
Or it's not because he knew.
And how do you know that wasn't a priority for him?
We never talked about it. We never talked about finding the person who could have done it.
Oh, Jim.
It was just odd. And we were sort of living in fear because we thought this horrible person was out there and we didn't.
It's
we were
better
mostly
testimony
afraid
when
for
Jim
Alec and
listens to
Buster,
it.
but we didn't know the motive behind the killings.
Did-
She's going to keep
We
going.
thought-
Go.
It probably had something to do with the boat case.
Right.
And we thought that up until September.
And then what changed? Oh, he's not going to
And
ask about
things
that.
started to change a little bit.
Sure. Well, were you aware that Alec started carrying a
The
gun?
prosecution should follow up on that.
You didn't know
Alec
that?
always carried a gun.
What's that?
He always carried a gun.
Fair.
On his person that he started carrying a gun. Were you aware of that?
I knew he usually had one in his car.
Till September and things started to change. There, the door is flung. Creighton. You did it, Jim. She's not just going to blurt stuff out, but the prosecution is absolutely going to ask. And she knows.
Oh,
No, he
I'll
always
ask
carried
you
a gun.
this
He wasn't afraid.
Sort of one topic kind of questions.
You're not going to be able to control this witness, Jim. I'm going to ask you one topic kind of questions.
Bubba
Good luck.
was Maggie's an Alex dog, is that right?
Mhm.
No Bubba
Bubba
slander.
could be a little hard-headed, we've heard.
Mhm.
But
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yes.
Bubba. I think Bubba could be a handful.
it's pretty clear that Alec could control Bubba pretty well.
Yes.
And
That's the point.
Maggie enjoyed going down to
Come
the
here,
kennels,
Bubba.
as far as you know, to play with the dogs.
She did.
Right. And she was a dog lover,
She was.
and you're a dog lover,
I am.
and you'll have dogs. Well, you know that they didn't allow dogs in the house at Moselle
Correct.
because of, I don't know, like,
Allergies.
yeah, allergies.
Right.
And-
But they had a big porch and there were dog beds all outside on the porch and,
Right.
you know, huge buckets of water. And when I was there, the dogs were always up there at the house.
Oh,
You know, there was an electric fence around.
I did not know that there was an electric fence, but
And did
Oh.
Maggie and Alec let dogs in the house down at Edison?
I don't think so. They stayed mostly underneath the house. She
They
had
had
a
like
pen,
Right.
big pen down there.
So they had a dog run type thing underneath the house.
Hmm. Yes.
And did you ever go to Edison and visit with
Yes.
Maggie and
it
Alec
sounds like
and the family?
Yes.
if Maggie was at Moselle, the dogs slept
And,
on the porch, not in the kennels.
Would Paul's friends and
Interesting.
Buster's friends welcome at
Always.
Edison
Yeah, we
and at
know.
Moselle?
Yes.
And
Maggie loved having the boys' friends around.
Because it's
And,
easier when their friends are around. They're such pleasant humans.
I think you mentioned this, but Moselle, was Moselle Paul's passion?
Yes.
He loved that place?
Yes.
And Alec enjoyed being there with Paul, is that right?
Yes. He did.
And, one second, Your Honor.
Very interesting. So the dogs would sleep on the porch. The family dogs, not the hunting dogs. The family dogs would sleep on the porch at Moselle when Maggie was there and liked having the dogs around the porch. What is Alec telling him to ask Maggie's sister?
Just very briefly.
Oh boy.
In your own words, you tell the jury what you believe Alec's relationship was with Paul.
I think they had a very good relationship. They loved all the same things. They loved to hunt. They loved to fish. They loved to work the land. I think the plan was for Paul to take over Moselle one day. And they had a great father-son relationship.
And in your own words, can you tell the jury what do you believe Alec's relationship with Maggie was?
It was good. It wasn't perfect. But Maggie was happy. And
Huh.
I think
Huh.
she was happy.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Read that right.
But Maggie was happy is what you say about your friend who you've been telling to leave someone and they won't.
And Maggie.
It wasn't
called you
perfect,
on
but she was happy.
Afternoon of June 7th, 2021. She reported to you that her whole purpose for going home was to go with Alec to visit Alameda. Is that correct?
Objection, leading.
What did Maggie tell you
Hey,
her
Creighton?
whole purpose was in going home and Alec wanting her to come home on June 7th?
You said everything changed in September.
She was going
What
home
do
to
you
be
mean
with
by
Alec and
that?
visit his parents at Alameda.
It was such a point of contention that you actually encouraged her to go.
I did.
You were asked some questions about you testified about Alec not being focused on trying to figure out who killed Maggie and Paul, and then something happened in September. Is that right?
Yep.
Correct.
Don't lead.
And that
Just
changed for
ask.
you as you started to look at the motive. Is that
Don't
correct? That's what
lead,
you
just
testified,
ask.
correct?
Correct.
And in September, he got fired from the law firm, right?
Let her ask, Creighton.
Correct.
And it started to come out about years and years of theft
It is.
and
It's leading.
misappropriation from clients.
It's
Is
leading.
that correct?
Objection, leading.
It is.
Objection sustained.
What came out in September?
What
to change
changed
your
for
calculus?
you in September?
And objection exceeding the scope of cross.
Oh, no, it didn't.
Objections overruled.
Oh, no, it didn't.
Please answer.
We were on our way to a football game and we received a phone call from a friend of ours saying how sorry they,
This issue that has not been ruled upon.
You asked the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have you go to the jury room. Please do not discuss the case.
You asked the question that elicited it. Creighton should have just asked what you told defense counsel. You told defense counsel that everything changed in September. What changed for you? That's it. It's not leading. What changed for you? He's going to object anyway. You did nothing wrong, love. You're all good. It's the lawyers. But that opened the door because he was getting into all of the character. We thought it was about the boat case till September when things
Nature of the
started
objection.
to change.
Your Honor, she was about to
You don't know.
testify that she had heard about the roadside shooting. The state has not gone into the roadside shooting yet. Your Honor's not ruled on whether that's admissible or not. We object to under 403 as to being admissible. And you know, the substantively, that is the objection, evidence of the roadside shooting. It just opens up a whole new avenue of issues. Secondly, you know, what she knows thus far would be hearsay, which is a technical objection, but certainly we object to any evidence of the roadside shooting.
Your Honor, at this point, of course, this is responsive to a question that was raised on
By the defense.
cross-examination by Mr. Griffin, in
Yep.
which he testified something happened in September. So for that reason, just to begin with, I believe that door is opened as to her to explain what it was that changed at that period in time, which was the nature of my question to her. Additionally, I think if we look beyond that, there is a connection if we want to talk and have in-camera hearing about her answer and about 403 and 404. There is a logical connection between what happened in the roadside shooting and what happened on June 7th, 2021. And that connection is, of course, that the evidence will show that as the temperature increases, as there's a confrontation for Alec Murdaugh, then things like this happen. And that's what happened on September. But as it relates to this specific witness, this was a answer that came up during the defense cross. And it's fair to explore with this witness now what changed in September, which she's already testified to from a defense question.
And what was the question that prompted the response that you now indicate opens the door for this? Yes.
So in that particular question and in her response, he asked her, and he had been, of course, engaging in great detail about the family relationship and that sort of thing, and put up a picture and all the rest of it, and asked her about her assessment at that particular time, and she went in and started to explain that, and he was specifically asking about Alec being concerned about clearing Paul's name in the boat case
and feeling
she
safe.
Explained further that, and he asked her if that was any big deal. And then she went on to explain her answer. And that's when she talked about how everything changed in September.
We
and
thought
that
it was
what
about
I was
the boat
exploring,
case
what
till
happened in
September
September,
when
which
things
has
started
been
to change.
testimony before this jury. And I think now fair game for them to understand what happened in September.
All right. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, that was not the question.
Yes, it
What was the question? That
Yeah,
was my
what was
question
the
to
question?
Mr.
Creighton
Waters,
doesn't
and he's
remember what the question
explained a whole lot. I don't know if he responded to my question. Maybe you will. What was the question that you posed that generated the
He needs to read
response
back.
about her concern and her concerns changing?
They don't remember.
The question that I asked related to her, I said, you testified previously
remember.
that
you didn't believe Alec was concerned about finding out who did this, or more concerned about clearing Paul's name. And then she says, well, it seemed odd he wasn't concerned
Just read
about
it back.
finding out who did this. And I said, why do you think he was not concerned? And then she goes into testifying, well, initially we thought it was the boating accident. And then after September, we thought perhaps it's something completely different. And I mean, I was exploring her testimony on direct, and she offered up the issue of the roadside shooting. So
She said they thought it was about the boat case.
I didn't ask anything about the roadside shooting, Your Honor. I was asking her why she thought Alec was not trying to, what was the basis of her belief that Alec wasn't
They can ask
trying
for
to find out who
readback.
did this?
They're not. They can ask for readback. They're not. I don't know why.
Mr. Waters?
And I apologize if I wasn't more clear. I don't remember the specific question, but
There's
what
someone
I
in
do.
the court who does.
Court reporters, if,
Thank you, Your
we'll
Honor.
have,
Thank you, Your Honor. Read it back.
Ms. Harris, if you'll go back a bit to Mr. Griffin and his
It's like
questioning
they've never been in a
of
trial
Ms.
before.
Proctor.
Your Honor, the answer Creighton could have given was, Your Honor, the defense elicited the answer. Things started to change in September. I don't remember the exact question. May we have it read back? That's all you have to say.
And solely consumed about the, I don't know how far that was, Maggie being consumed about the boating accident. And if it's not too far back from there on up to where you are now.
So now the court reporter has to go back and search into the rough
If
notes.
you need a break, we can take one for you to locate it.
It wasn't that far back in the testimony, so it shouldn't take more than a minute to find it.
Question.
Can take one for you to locate it.
I don't know why the cameras are flashing today. It's just,
I'm looking for the question.
Right.
she's going to be just a moment. I'm riveted.
You're not critical about Alex wanting to clear Paul's name.
Need to be loud enough for me to hear you at least. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, this one.
I like this judge.
Okay. You're not critical about Alex wanting to clear Paul's name. After he was murdered, are you? I am not critical about that at all. I think that was his way of honoring Paul after he was gone. I just thought his priority should have been focusing on finding out who killed Maggie and Paul. And how do you know that wasn't a priority? We never talked about it. We never talked about finding the person who could have done it.
It's powerful testimony. It is. It's
It
court
was
instant
just
replay.
odd. And we were sort of living in fear because we thought this horrible person was out there, and we were mostly afraid for Alex and Buster. We didn't know the motive behind the killings. We thought it was probably had something to do with the boat case, right? And we thought that up until September. All right. And then things started to change a little bit. Were you aware that Alex
Okay, that
started
was it.
carrying a gun?
Good.
All right, Mr. Waters.
Your Honor, again,
I'm taking notes. How does he
these
do
were
this?
in
I'm
direct
taking
responses to his question as he was exploring her statement about his concern on the boat case. And in fact, the reference to September was actually in response to a follow-up question that the defense continued down that line of questioning. That answer has now come out, and I think that that the witness again is entitled and is fair game at this point before.
Testify as to what changed in September?
Yes. What changed in
What she meant by
September?
that. Yes, sir. What she meant by
That's
that.
the question.
And what changed in September?
Do you want me to talk to them?
Yes, ma'am.
So we received a phone call from a
You're
friend of
riveted.
ours who said he was so sorry to hear about my brother-in-law. And the call came in to my husband, Bart, and Bart said, "What are you talking about? We don't know anything." And he said, "Well, your brother-in-law's been shot." And we literally stopped the car, pulled over on the side of the road, and it was just the
Hyperventilated.
worst feeling in the world because I thought whoever had killed Maggie and Paul had now shot Alec, and I was horrified that Buster was next. So we made a phone call to Buster, and Buster said his dad had been shot, but that he was okay. He was on his way or in the hospital at that time. I can't remember. And then at some point, and I'm not sure, I think I was in shock. At some point, we spoke with Jim Griffin that day. And he told us that, yes, Alec had been shot, that he had been fired from the law firm because he had been caught stealing money.
Oh, that's why Jim knew to object.
All right,
He
thank you.
told her.
Yes, sir.
Woo!
Again, that's her explanation.
I didn't see Jim
And
Griffin said.
I believe that's fair game in this
Holy
particular
shit.
instance to this particular witness's testimony that had come out on cross-examination.
Oh,
And
Jim.
I probably would have one follow-up. Additionally, I should mention as well, I think there's two other matters that probably we should explore while the jury's out, in fairness to the other side and in court, that I wanted to inquire that were in reference to cross-examination. Those are different issues. I was
Going into and tell me what they are, so.
Sure. There were
My.
obviously extensive cross-examination about the family relationship, and there's been extensive evidence offered by the defense on cross about the
judge
family
already told you
relationship.
can get into character.
And there were two questions I was going to ask her about fidelity concerns,
Yes.
and
You're
also
allowed to ask.
the Maggie and the family wrestling with opioid abuse and pill usage by the defendant.
They opened the door for character, Jim.
Those have been issues that Maggie had wrestled with and had expressed to her.
Wait, Maggie had talked to her sister
No,
about
it's
opioids
different.
and infidelity? Creighton, you're
Well,
holding
as
out
to
on
the-
us.
I don't know if you want me to address the roadside shooting, but that certainly, I mean, that opens up Pandora's box of 404B. They want to introduce the roadside shooting as motive. How can you have motive after the
It's not
fact?
motive.
And so it's not
It's
admissible.
consciousness of
It
guilt.
should not be admissible under 403. But just what she says is not that harmful, but they're not going to stop there, Your Honor. And I did not open the door. I said,
You're probing her about Alex's fears. Doesn't Alex, were you aware that he started carrying a gun? Well, he always carries a gun in his car. No, but then he started carrying it in his pockets. So you're having her, cross-examining her to suggest that Alex was living in fear, as evidenced by the fact that he
Was carrying a gun.
continued or started carrying a gun, not in his vehicle, but on his person.
He asked other witnesses.
And
to shoot.
she, in her response, says, "Well, I never didn't appear to me that he was living in fear. I didn't know anything
She was the
about
one who was
that and
afraid.
responding to you until in September when this occurred for whatever reason. Now, what the truth of what occurred,
Came in like a wrecking
she's
ball.
not testifying as an investigator. She said she heard he'd been shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed her reason for concern
And then you called her.
in some way, whatever that might be, I don't know.
You called her.
Did you still have a reason for concern? Are you about Alex's safety, or was it changed? Was it altered?
The judge wants to take over this trial. He's so tired of these
That
attorneys.
day, and for some time after that, we were very concerned for the family.
Until we learned Alec hired someone
We
to
felt
shoot
like
him
someone was
himself.
after them, but then we started finding
Tell
out
us.
about other things that had been going on
Like?
in Alec's life. And
And this is in part based on your conversation with Mr. Griffin.
this is everything that has come out since then.
Did you say that you had a conversation with Mr. Griffin?
That day that we found out that Alec had been shot, we did have a conversation with Mr. Griffin, and
Mr.
he's the
Griffin
one,
told you that he'd been fired and that he'd been caught stealing money.
correct.
That's just hearsay.
Well,
Absolutely hearsay.
what kind of quandary does that put you in? You're going to be a witness as well?
Well, that's a hearsay statement,
Yes, Your Honor.
without a doubt. It's classic hearsay.
It's the basis for her fear or not having
On the
fear, which is
listener.
something you, or fear or believing that Alex was in fear. That's something that you were probing.
Yep.
Aside from that issue, how about the family relationship issue, fidelity, opioid abuse?
Jim also elicited this
concerns.
with other witnesses.
Your Honor, with regard to fidelity, I mean, we can hear what she says about it, but the evidence, as I understand it, is 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know how long ago, but it was more than 10 years ago. There was some issue about someone that Alec had known in college reaching out to him. Maggie got angry about that. They had a
Reaching out to him 15 years ago or recently?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What?
And that Maggie got angry about it.
That's too far removed.
Contacted the woman's husband, who says, it's not true. I know who she's seeing because I have a private eye on her. That led to a divorce.
You're now referring to a 15-year-old conversation.
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
And then
Creighton,
the opioid stuff, Your Honor,
if
is,
it's a 15-year conversation, then that's
I'm
dumb.
not sure what
That's too far
information
afield.
she's going to share about that, frankly.
Well, you had
Well,
one
ask her.
earlier witness read a letter about him being in rehab
Yep, you did.
That they introduced. Yes, sir.
That you introduced.
that you published.
You
It's
published.
already in evidence, Your Honor.
It wasn't.
All right.
Over objection. So,
Go ahead, Mr. Waters.
So on both of those issues, first of all, with
my God.
the first,
By the way, you can step down for a break. Don't discuss your case.
Let-
You're fine?
Let's let them argue.
Okay, good. All right.
Oh, she wants. She doesn't
with
want to
the
walk
issue of
through
the first
the lion's
matter,
den.
I think it's certainly a fair question to say, did Maggie ever express to you any concerns? Were there ever any concerns and issues with the defendant's fidelity? I think that's clearly in response to the extensive evidence that's been offered by the defense.
You said, has she ever, such as 15 years ago?
That's too
Well,
far
I think
in
that
time.
my follow-up question would be, was that something that remained in Maggie's mind over the years up until,
And she would know that.
I think that if I asked her that question, she could express an answer to that. Yes, sir.
No? What is the answer to that?
It was an affair that happened, or Maggie thought it was an affair that happened many years ago. They were able to resolve the issues, but Maggie still brought it up.
As recently as when?
A year ago. She did not think anything was going on. It still bothered her.
She's still pissed.
All right. Yes.
She's still pissed.
During when that event occurred, did she make Alec leave the household for a period of time?
She did.
She's still pissed.
frame when this happened.
She's
I
still
understand.
pissed,
15
Jim.
years ago or?
It was a very long time ago. I'm not sure.
He's
A very
still
long time ago.
apologizing for it because Maggie is
I
still
think,
pissed
again, I'm
about
not
it.
trying to make it bigger than it is, but I think given the issues that have been squarely in front of the jury, the state's entitled, at least in a limited fashion, to offer this
Because
some
everything's
testimony
perfect,
in this
Jim.
regard that everything was not perfect as the defense has repeatedly elicited. And so on
And
that
nobody
particular issue,
knows what
I
happens
only propose a
behind
limited
closed doors
question that
except for the sister.
had Maggie ever had any concerns about fidelity, and had those concerns continued to bother her. And that would be the extent of my proposed examination of her on that issue.
All right.
Because
Anything else?
Everything's
2007 is our understanding.
not
2007, 15
perfect.
years ago.
Well, yeah, 2007 was 15 years ago. Yeah.
And that's when it occurred.
Well, that's been established. Give me something new,
Well, so
give me
other than
something.
repeating 15 years ago.
Give me something.
not admissible under 403. Unfair prejudice outweighs the probative value of this, whether it still bothered her. I mean, she testified that they weren't without their problems like all married couples, but they had a good marriage. I mean, it's been addressed, and it's highly inflammatory.
Yep. You said perfect marriage
That's why
a
your
million
questions
times.
have to not lead into things that might be inflammatory. We're going to be in recess for about 15 minutes. Please.
Oh, shit. Jim. I'm sorry. You guys, I can't. The judge is now asking Jim if he's going to be a witness. Y'all, trial has gotten spicy. I'm going to try to do a recap of all the legal that just happened during Maggie's sister's testimony. Of course, Jim knew what to object to. I was mid rant and I got booted from my own stream. I ranted so much, I got booted from my own stream. Apologies. I am back now. I ranted too hard. I ranted too hard, y'all. I'm sorry. I yeeted. It was a self yeet. I don't know what's happening. Okay, look. We need to swoop and we need to talk about the trial that just started apparently yesterday. 3 weeks in and we're in trial now. But I'm not done with just a swoop.
Y'all deserve a pickle. It's been too long. We need a pickle. I'm very tired. Today's testimony has been fire. The judge is sick of everyone's bullshit. And it's divine.
It's just delightful. This judge has not been overly sassy. He has been very permissive, but this judge has been permissive. He has not been this sassy, but oh my God. Oh my God. So Maggie's sister's on the stand. In the middle of her cross-examination, Jim starts probing her about, well, why they were scared and Alec being scared. This testimony has come up before. Jim asked maybe Ronnie, one of Alec's law firm friends, did you see Alec on a boat coming over to somebody's house at Edisto with a gun in like a grocery bag, like a canvas grocery bag? So they started talking about, oh, he's carrying a gun for protection because he's scared. This witness is having none of that shit. She's like, I'm scared. But I don't think Alec is scared. And Alec not being scared after the murders goes to his mindset after the fact and can go to consciousness of guilt. He's not afraid that the quote unquote real murderer is out there because he knows that he's the murderer. That goes to his consciousness of guilt. The things he's doing are because he's guilty. That's what the prosecution's going to argue. Jim's pushing, well, didn't he start carrying a gun? And this witness is like, he always carried a gun. This isn't new. Oh, but he carried it in his car. Now he's carrying it on his person. And she's like, look, we were afraid. And I didn't understand why Alec wasn't concerned about finding who murdered my sister and Paul. He never brought it up. He never talked to me about it. He never said he was looking for it. He never said he was searching for the person who did it. He never updated them. She was scared. She was scared that someone was coming after them. She was scared for Alec, and she was scared for Buster, and she was scared for her family. She was scared for her sister's child. I think she was probably more scared for her sister's child, remaining child that she loves so much, because that's what you do for your sister. This sister has not forgotten the pain Alec has put Maggie through. And we saw it in her testimony. Chat, let me know. We saw it in her testimony. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but Maggie was happy. And now we know why. Because he cheated on her at some point, and sister has not forgiven. Sister is happy that Maggie is happy, but sister has not forgiven. And probably won't ever. I'm happy that you're happy. I'm here for you to be happy. And she wants to protect what her sister loved dearly in the world, Buster. So of course she was afraid. Of course she wanted answers. And then she said everything started to change in September. And then the jury was yeeted. Yeet the jury. And then we get a small 404 hearing, or a proffer, outside the presence of the jury, where the sister talks about the fact that Alec had an affair 15 years ago, and that Maggie has brought it up as recently as a year before. Maggie has not forgotten. This is other motive, that maybe Alec can't just come to Alec and be, or Alec can't just come to Maggie and be like, hey, I know you want to move out of Hampton, where people are looking at you because of everything that's gone down with the boat case. And I know that you want to move to Hilton Head, but we can't afford to do it right now. And maybe he is terrified to say why they can't do it right now, because she is still pissed about the affair. It doesn't matter that it's 15 years ago. The sister said Maggie had brought it up as recently as a year ago, even though the affair happened in 2007. Maggie hasn't forgotten. Which leads to the circumstance of Alec being always lovey-dovey, trying to make it seem as everything is perfect, because he is still making a penance to Maggie. She wants to move out of Hampton and go down to Hilton Head, or up, or east, some direction to Hilton Head. And they can't afford it because he's stealing money everywhere, and he is maxed out on loans at the bank. But he also can't tell her that he is maxed out on the bank, because he is still making a penance. So when everything changes in September, she knows that everything changes in September, because Jim Griffin, the fucking lawyer, calls her and says, Alec has been shot. He's been fired. He's been stealing from the law firm. How is that the person you choose, knowing you've had that conversation with this witness, and then you choose to do the cross-examination? And they haven't even gotten to the fact that he admitted that the roadside was a setup. Holy shit. And then the judge is looking at Jim and going, well, are you a witness? Jim made himself a witness in this case 1,000,000 times over, and probably shouldn't be one of the attorneys on the case because of it. He was there the night of the murders. He could consult with this defense team, but he probably shouldn't have been directing and crossing witnesses. And the judge is over the old boy fuckery that he is seeing on the defense side, because Jim is so interlinked with this case. He showed up the night of the murders. He's been at the house. He knows all of these boys. They are family, friends. And the judge was like, so are you a witness too? Because the judge knows. If they had had the other defense attorney, who I quite like, Barber, do the cross-examination of Maggie's sister, none of this would have happened. But here the fuck we are. Here the fuck we are. And I think the judge is going to let all of it in. The judge has let everything in. And the judge has said, you've opened the door. Your wrecking ball, your door frame, not my problem, not my circus. You reap what you sow. I thought that this was a huge issue at the beginning with Jim and Harpootlian, because they represented Paul. And now they're trying to turn it around on Paul. That's what they're doing. They're asking about Paul's responsibility and all the rest of it. That feels gross to me. I didn't like any of it from the beginning. They have some loyalty to Paul as a client, but apparently nobody gave a shit. So they all blew right past that. But more and more and more as this evidence goes on, we see how interlinked Jim Griffin is, to the point that this lawyer called Maggie's sister to say that Alec had been shot, he was fired, and he's been stealing from the law firm. And those are the lawyers that stood up in opening argument and said, we are honored to represent Alec Murdaugh. They know he's been stealing since September, and they believed that he'd been stealing. Even if they don't think he's a murderer, they know that he's a fucking thief and that he has stolen from his clients. And the jury is now going to look at them and be like, huh. So you knew he was stealing from the Satterfields. You knew that. You knew that. That's not new to you. You're not arguing it. You're not arguing that he stole from his clients. You knew that. And you're honored. The defense has created their own mess. And I'm just waiting to see where it fucking goes from here. I'm going to answer some questions. This, I'm going to have to rewatch. This is spicy trial today. Look, we have been weeks of every single little casing for the 300 blackout. I know more about a 300 blackout than I ever want to. I never knew there was a difference between buckshot and birdshot and all the other kinds of shots. I shoot arrows. I don't know. I know more now. I think I've acquired more of a Southern accent watching this trial than I have living in Nashville. It's okay. I'm never going to pronounce July any other way again in my life. I want to bring the jurors forever. I want to bring the jurors forever. I love this. But holy shit, today has popped off in a very unexpected way, and it is a mess of the defense's making. Why? I can't wait to see all the other lawyers. Like, I can't wait to see what Peter has to say about this evening when he does a recap. I can't wait to see what Rob has. I'm going to pop over, when I am done with this, I'm going to pop over social media and see what everybody has to say. The defense created the situation that they fucking stepped in, like unhosed down kennels. And we got a great witness this morning and Maggie's sister this afternoon. And then tomorrow you bring the timeline witness, and the prosecution's case has gotten a lot better. Question, will they mention he paid someone to shoot him? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But here we are. We're in the middle of a trial. We're in the middle of a trial. We're in the middle of a trial that just got very, very spicy. And we're going to get to talk about what is opening the door. I think the defense opened the door for this from the beginning when they started with not just the birthday video, but when they asked, was it Rogan Gibson? I don't remember exactly which friend of Paul's. Can you conceive of any way or any reason that Alec would do this to his family? That's when they started. Ask this witness, Jim, ask this witness. Can you conceive of any reason that he would do this to his family? Ask her. Ask her, because you wanted to ask Paul's friends. Ask her. Oh, because you started it. So let's see what happens. So I don't know if Cousin Eddie will testify. I don't know, but damn. There are almost 40,000 of you in here. So I do have to remind you that I am a YouTuber, and I would love it if you go ahead and subscribe. I cover trials. Mostly they're not streaming. We cover a few streaming trials. Mostly it's just, the tea in everybody's legal documents. The tea is live and streaming today. It's just wild. But we're going to get a lot more information because of the defense's questions. They just pushed a little too far because they should have known. Jim should not have underestimated this witness. Jim should have known that the sister is not convinced that Alec didn't do this. He should have been able to see the daggers in her eyes when she talked about Alec, but he wasn't listening to her answers and he wasn't reading her face. And so he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And this witness pushed right back. You have to be in the moment. You have to look at your witnesses. A lot of witnesses have let Jim kind of go along with them. And Jim has been like, you're not trying to tell this jury this. Oh, no, Jim, I'm sure not. You're not trying to tell this jury this. Oh, no, Jim, I'm sure not. He's like, you're not trying to tell this jury that you are critical of Alec trying to clear Paul's name. She's like, no, I'm not critical of Alec trying to clear Paul's name. I'm critical that he wasn't looking for the person that killed my sister and nephew. And I thought this had everything to do with the boat case until September. When you called me on the phone and told me he had been shot and that he was stealing from the clients at his law firm, because this is the witness who was going to say she couldn't have imagined him doing this. And when she learned, it changed everything for her. They've asked none of the other character witnesses that. And I've been very critical of their failure to ask other character witnesses that question. And this is the time. This is the time. This is the time to ask the character witness. Ask the sister. You've known him. You know their marriage. You know their kids. You know Maggie. You know Alec. You've heard the defense ask you about how loving he was with his family. Did you know everything about him? Were you shocked when you learned he was stealing from his clients? Were you surprised that they couldn't just buy the house in Hilton Head that she wanted? Were you surprised by that? And Creighton has tiptoed around it, and he can't lead. Ask the question. You said everything changed in September. What changed? Let her talk. And the only way to let a witness talk is to not ask leading questions. Ask simple questions. What did you feel? What did you do next? What did you hear? What changed for you in September? What did you think when you learned that he was stealing from his clients? Simple questions, and let her talk. Let her talk. All right. I don't know how long this break's going to be for. The court always says 10 minutes, but I have time blindness, so it always feels like 170 years. And then I am kind of fired. I am all fired up. We are having our whole, this is the spicy Draco moment of this trial. This right here. Everything changed in September. That is the same could be said about you, Elaine. This is the moment. This is the moment. Let's answer questions. We got time. Y'all want to go DEFCON red? We'll go DEFCON red. We'll go. Motion granted. We'll go DEFCON red. We will. We can go DEFCON red. All right. The chat has made a motion for DEFCON red. For those of you that are new law nerds, go ahead and subscribe. We'll go to DEFCON red. Granted. Motion granted. If any of you are flash sensitive, the flashing stops when the music stops, but there is a little bit of flashing. No more, though, than the cameras on the feeds today. So that is a light flash. It ends when the music ends. It's time to go to DEFCON red.
In 3, 2, 1.
I kind of just took it to DEFCON Death Star because we needed it, but I can't survive without the light on because it fills in the giant lack of sleep that is expressed all over my under eyes. So we're going to keep asking questions. The court's not back yet. Court's taking a break to let the attorneys figure out what they're going to do. They're going to keep arguing. But court has gotten so spicy today. Oh, and it's not even like fake spicy. It's not like, is it a raincoat or is it a tarp? No. The real spice is today. DB, Emily, do you still work I work for no one, except for the law nerds. Do I work with lawyers? Yes, some. I do. Emily, are you excited or what? I am nervous. I am excited. I am glad that we finally have something that feels like actual evidence. Yes. Can Jim listen to your lives on break? I don't think he wants to. I don't think Jim wants to listen to what I have to say at all. Jim's doing Jim. Look, I don't know how many trials Jim has done. He probably is going to think it's more than me. I also have purple hair. Jim wants to hear nothing I have to say. But Jim does not agree with this judge. And Jim is like, Jim's got the come on man energy. He's like, come on, man, that didn't open the door. This judge has been consistent in his rulings. Whether you think they're more permissive or not, Jim knows what this judge has been doing, because this judge has been permissive. And we can see where he's going. This judge signals exactly where he's going. You know exactly what his rulings are going to be. Exactly. You know exactly what his rulings are going to be. Do the YouTube things while we're on break. Suspense is killing me. Juicy. We got a juicy trial. It's the sister. And the thing that's so riveting about this testimony for me is we haven't heard from Maggie's family. No interviews, no statements at all. Nothing. This is the first time we're hearing any of it. Questions: how many shells loaded into a shotgun? They have not talked much about these shotguns, but there were 2 for the shotgun that shot Paul. So I don't know if there was more. It wouldn't be unusual for AM to have a shotgun. It was never unusual for him to have a shotgun, but if he had a handgun in his car. Question: was the medical examiner crossed just Dick and his friends in a circle trying to get Alex off? All puns intended. Thrifting my best life. I appreciate the puns. We need the levity. It was really, I think, setting up their expert. I think that's what that was. The defense attempted to throw Paul under the bus and imply that it was a murder, self-harm. This has nearly tipped my opinion over the edge, and that can work. Emily, has any one of your subs told you how beautiful you are? I am not that beautiful, but thank you. I will take the compliments. I like to think I'm fun, so I will take the compliments. Thank you, law nerds. I appreciate you, except for those of you that are not here, because those of you that do this are not here. The unsolicited photos in my DMs, unless they are of a cat or a puppy, or your adorable little babies, there are some unsolicited photos I just don't need. It's okay. It's all right. I am good. My house is full of men. I don't need you to send me all of your bits. Thanks. It's good. I absolutely will take pictures of your kitties and your puppers and your babies. Here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for you and your law nerd merch. I'm here for all of it. The unsolicited body parts. My house is well and full in that department. So thanks. Court is back. The judge is like, I brought the fire today. He's entertained by his own trial today. Of course he is. I'm entertained by him. He's entertained by him. I'm living for it. All right, Your Honor.
The witness can testify as to her concern as to what occurred on September 7th that changed her concern about Alex living in fear.
He didn't even call court order. He just
cannot testify as to on the fidelity issue because that's too remote in time.
It is remote in time.
Tend to confuse the jury. She can testify that she discovered that he'd been fired and that and that he had a drug problem.
I think that's fair.
Your Honor, depending on how the testimony goes, we would have hearsay objections if she's testifying as to what someone told her.
You, Jim, as to what you told her.
As to the truth of it, she's responding to why her concerns were
not hearsay
changed based on in part of her conversations with you.
No, I understand that.
Agent for Mr. Murdaugh.
Well, I understand that. My point I just stood to address is the family wrestling with opioid and pill use by the defendant. That is hearsay. If that's how she knows.
It's not a drug problem. I mean, if you want to talk about specifically, I don't know to what degree she.
It's not being offered for the truth.
Discovered his drug problem, opioid addiction, or whatever it is, but it's already in evidence anyway.
No, I understand. I'm just advising the court.
I think that's a fair ruling.
Making hearsay objections if she's testifying about hearsay.
Yeah,
anything
Jim.
else before the jury comes?
Bring the jury.
Nothing for him to say this time, Your Honor.
All right, bring the jury.
Bring the jury. I'm going to switch feeds. Y'all, the jury's gonna get to hear some stuff today. Let's get some trial, y'all. I'm here for it. Financial crimes for fucking ever. They should have just brought the sister. Just bring the sister. You don't need the financial crimes forever. Maybe some of it, but you could have just brought the sister. She's got everything you need. I can't wait till she says what Jim told her. Oh, remember, we're on redirect. Recross is going to be fiery, but oh my goodness. This is definitely a change in pace for this trial this afternoon. And you're right. Those of you that are like, Emily was ready for all of the tea. Yes, I am ready for all of the information. This trial has been fairly dry. This trial is a soap opera wrapped in a novella. It is family and power and wealth and privilege and theft and all of it.
The objection's overruled. You may continue.
And they've
Please
presented
score, Your Honor.
checks. This is what we want to
Ms.
see.
Proctor, when we left on the break, I was asking you what happened in September that caused you to change your assessment. Can you describe that to the jury, please?
On September 4th, we were headed to a football game, and my husband, Bart, received a phone call from a friend saying he was so sorry to hear about what had happened to my brother-in-law. And we had no idea what he was talking about. And he said, well, we've heard, he told us he had been shot. So we pulled over on the side of the road. We were all in hysterics. We called Buster, and Buster said yes, that his dad had been shot, that he was being airlifted to the hospital, that they thought hoped he was going to be okay. So we wanted more information, so we called Jim Griffin, and he told us that Alec had been shot in the head and that he had been fired from his law firm for stealing.
What was your concern when you heard that he had been shot?
Initially, I thought he might be dead. I had just lost 2 of the family members, and I felt like they were being targeted at that point. I felt like the family was being targeted.
And that's what he wanted you to
Subsequent
think.
to that, did your concern that the family was being targeted, did that change as well?
Over the course of a few weeks,
Ooh,
we were still on high alert, worried for Buster. But at that point, information started coming out about some things that Alec had done financially that we had no idea about.
And that changed your assessment about what you heard about him being shot as well. Is that correct? Can you answer out loud?
Creighton, give her a minute.
The shooting, that was an event in itself.
Just let her answer.
The roadside shooting.
Re-ask your question, Creighton.
You just stated that the shooting itself, the roadside shooting, was an event in itself. Did other information come to your attention that changed your assessment about the roadside shooting at a later time?
Yes.
What was that? What was that?
And changed that initial concern that Alec was somehow being targeted?
Yes.
Did Maggie have a nickname?
He was trying to be careful.
As little, what is detective?
Little detective?
Mm-hmm.
And what did that mean?
She felt like that he was always looking to make sure his dad was behaving.
And what specifically was the concern?
What?
Pills.
What?
Prescription pain pills.
And had Maggie expressed to you concern over time
So the
about
family
the
knew.
defendant's pill usage?
Yes.
How long had that been going on?
I am not sure, but I think it had been going on for some time.
And did that concern continue up until recent times as we moved to their Maggie and Paul's murder?
Yes.
And what did specifically little detective mean as it related to the pills?
Huh.
If there were pills in the house that his dad was taking that he wasn't supposed to, Paul was determined that he would find them.
And did that happen on occasions?
Horrible position for a kid to be in.
I think so, yes.
Hold on for me 1 second.
It's a horrible position for a kid to be in. It's horrible for him to try to moderate his dad's addiction. It's just very, very sad. I need to go back, chat. I see you saying little detective is what Murdaugh called Paul in the I did him so bad.
What
police video. I
specifically
need to go
changed
back
your
and look. It
perception
didn't
of the roadside
strike me
shooting
then.
after your initial concern?
The story that was initially told about what happened came
She's being
to
careful
not
too.
be true.
The story told by who?
Alec.
By Alec? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Let her answer.
Anything further?
Creighton, there was so much more there.
Thank
Creighton
you.
was
I mean,
being
it's
very
definitely-
careful. It's a horrible position to put your kid in. That aside, he was very careful not to get into the fact that Alec hired someone, but to be clear that the roadside incident story was
Call
not
your next
true.
witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The
And I
state calls
think-
Bart Proctor.
I think it's fair to be careful that way. I think it's much better that way. But the family knew. Oh, we pinged. The family knew. And that's something we did not know before
Do you
this.
swear or affirm that any testimony you give today be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you.
All right, you would please, sir? Sit in that chair over there. Take your full name.
All right.
Spell your last name, and then speak into the mic.
Wow. Of course, Jim had no recross.
My name is Barton Proctor, Proctor.
Proctor, good afternoon. Very quickly, tell the jury, are you Marian Proctor's husband?
Husband.
For 37 years.
For 7 years. And obviously, over the years, as being part of this family, have you gotten to know Maggie and gotten to know Paul and gotten to know the defendant?
What's he
Murdaugh?
going to know?
I have.
I don't want to belabor
Finally.
points, but in the aftermath of Maggie and Paul's murder, were you also privy to some of the conversations that Alec had that your wife related to this jury today?
So weird
Yes.
they all listen to each other's testimony.
And ultimately heard the same thing in those conversations that she related here today?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to review what's been entered into evidence as states 297, the kennel video?
I have heard it.
May I have the computer input, please?
Do we need this witness to identify voices? We've identified voices a lot. Why do this?
For the record, I'm going to play states 297.
Coffee and Cats, congratulations on your first art show. Glad I saw your chat. Interesting that they're using him to corroborate the voices again. They've done it so much. They've done it so much.
Quick cash.
Such a cute puppy.
Hey, he's got burns now.
That kennel does look wet.
It's a kitty. It's a chicken. Yes.
Alec denied being at the kennels at all that night a couple times.
Do you recognize any voices on that video?
I recognize 3.
Can you tell the jury what voices you recognize?
I recognize Paul Murdaugh. I recognize Maggie Murdaugh, and I recognize Alec Murdaugh.
And when you say Alec Murdaugh, do you see him in the courtroom here today?
I do.
Can you point him out for the jury, please?
Yes,
Or
sir.
describe him.
He's wearing a blue blazer and has his glasses on his head.
And how sure are you?
100%.
Thank you. Please answer any questions the defense may have.
That is a waste of a witness. What in the world is the point, Creighton? And why what? Creighton, 7 witnesses have identified those voices. People who know this family. Why are you bothering with this? You had such powerful testimony to have this man sit on the stand to say, these are the 3 voices.
Hey, Mr. Proctor. Were you ever shown a blue raincoat by any SLED agent?
Objection outside the
Yes,
scope
sir.
of direct.
And was that
Creighton?
blue raincoat shown
Anything,
to
buddy?
you and your wife Marian, who just was here in the
Objection
courtroom?
outside the scope of direct.
Yes, sir. It's a picture.
A picture of the blue raincoat. And
Did they
do you
exhaust their
recognize? Do
lawyering
you
for the
recognize the
day?
blue raincoat?
No, sir.
Had you ever seen it before?
No, sir.
Did you ever see Paul wear it? The blue raincoat.
I had never recognized it before.
Y'all, we
All right.
banged. It's time to gift some super chats.
That's all the
Give me 1
questions I
second.
have, Your Honor.
What the fuck was the
Anything
point?
further?
Say, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Because it was pointless. Laura, thank you for the gifted memberships. I'm going to give some as well in just a moment. That was the biggest waste of
You
time.
have another witness today?
Your Honor, as you're aware, there was a circumstance beyond any party's control.
Are we done?
No, because of a circumstance beyond the party's control.
Very good.
We're done for the day.
Um,
We're done for the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are no more
We're done for the
witnesses
day.
available today. And this is Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the gift
So
of love.
we will recess at this time and resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning.
I need a break.
Have a good evening.
That was a wasted last witness. What a waste of a witness. What a waste of time. We could have broken a full 15 minutes earlier. Look at that. Court is done early today and court will be done early tomorrow. I'm going to keep my eye on it because I want to see what's happening in court. So I'm going to keep my eye on the court feed real quick just because I want to see it. It looks like lead counsel down here are having a conversation probably about scheduling. That would be my guess. Oh, no, we're not done. Okay, well, the jury's done.
Mr. Waters, the jury's gone. You can further explain if you'd like. You can further explain.
Your issues.
The issue with the scheduling? Yes, sir. There's witnesses that are coming forward. There's a unavoidable, unfortunate personal event that has arisen that unfortunately has affected that witness's availability, Your Honor. And so that's why we had requested, we are late in the day, but have requested a recess for the day. Your Honor, I will say that with the side of the road issue has always been out there. And at this point, we believe there is some admissibility as to that, particularly a statement of the defendant related to that, in which there's actually a few statements, but there's one statement in particular. I don't know if Your Honor wants to proffer that at this particular time, since we have a little time.
We've got time.
Available outside the jury's presence.
I was counting
I do think that at some point that's a bridge,
to go
given
play
developments
Love
that
and
needs to be
Pies
crossed.
before it hatched. Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
We've prepared a memo. We would be prepared to argue that motion, but we're not today. We expected this to go through, no motions to be argued today. I apologize to court.
You wrote the
but we
motion.
would
Why aren't
prefer
you
not to
prepared to
go forward
argue
with
it?
today.
You know your case. Let's
You
do it.
said you're preparing or have prepared a memo?
What is he sitting there writing it now? I'm almost done, Your Honor. I'm almost done, I swear. What is happening? I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. Something is happening.
Stop the jury and have them come at another time if need be, 10 o'clock, 10:30, whatever.
Done with that. We're hoping, we're not anticipating it coming up at all.
Can you all don't leave with the jury yet? If you can find out, are they gone or still here? You have them hold for a moment.
Don't let the jury go because they might push back tomorrow. Rob, I see your wise words in the chat. Rob is saying sometimes you get caught in a panic. They knew this was coming, though. They knew this was coming. They knew this was coming. They knew the roadside incident was an issue, and they knew this was coming up. This isn't catching them out of the blue. They knew it was coming.
We have completed the memo, filed it. Your Honor has it on the 404B issue. There's a section on the roadside.
Has it been sent to me or being sent?
It was,
Your Honor, it was filed well before trial, and it is a consolidated memo. It addresses all the 404B stuff, the financial evidence
That's already been ruled on.
ruled in. And in the section of the memo, we do address the roadside shooting. We point out that it's after June 7th. We point out that he's been indicted for insurance fraud. As a result of that, attempted insurance fraud, their theory of motive is it is just another way for him to gain sympathy when financial situations turn bad, leave for him.
Thank you, Sweet Savings and Things.
But we point out that
Happy
he has been
Valentine's Day as
indicted
well.
by Hampton County grand jury for insurance fraud for attempted suicide to obtain $12 million of insurance for his
I thought it
son
was 10.
Buster. And so we argue that it's not motive, and it should not be admissible under 403 as well.
All right, and I'm happy to talk about all of that and review what it
Yeah, if they're
what's
just
been
going to argue
submitted
motive, it's after
overnight
the
and
fact.
review whatever the state may have for me to consider and to hear any more argument about it in the morning prior to ruling. I've had them stop the jury from leaving to find out how much time you all might need tomorrow morning, because otherwise I've told them to be here at 9:30 if they need to come at 10 o'clock, 10:30. Start proving.
Your Honor, I don't think this will take 30 minutes to argue that.
Lies.
I prefer to argue it in the morning simply because we haven't looked at it. And while Mr. Griffin is an extraordinary advocate, I'd like an opportunity to.
Want the jury to come in at 10?
10 would be great.
I would say 10:30 to be safe, Your Honor.
Yep.
Why I'd argued against that. I'm trying to think of a reason, but I really can't.
So we're going to have the jury come in at 10:30 tomorrow morning instead of 9:30.
They'll appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for not
All right.
wasting their time.
In the interim, however, if you all have something you want me to
The judge is
read
like,
overnight,
we're all here.
early in the morning, happy to receive it.
Yes, sir.
I have what was previously filed now. Defendant's memorandum in opposition to motion and limine re-evidence of other crimes and bad acts. And I've ruled on a majority of this already.
We may polish that up a little bit tonight, and if so, we'll email it to your law clerk, and she, I'm sure, will get it to you.
Page 9 starts the roadside shooting discussion.
I knew it.
I love that Jim's like, I knew
Honor,
it
and
was
the
there
reply
somewhere. Dick.
also touched this
Other way
ground
around.
as well, but we can do the same thing.
Middle of page 9 through the top of page 12. So you have about 2.5 pages that you might want to, if you want to supplement it It'd be fine.
Thank
If you want to. And how about from the state's perspective?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, and I think I just lost my glasses. Put them up. Your Honor, if you look at our response in opposition that was filed on December 8th, we, on page 19, in the factual recitation, we talk about specifically the shooting on the side of the road in response to the confrontation with Chris Wilson. And then, of course, from that point on, and prior to that, there is analysis, general analysis on 404 and 403. I believe our reply, which I'm trying to put my hands on, also addresses those issues. But we can also polish up some things as well for Your Honor.
He says hello, Leonard.
There is, thank you, Mr. James. There is, starting at page 15 in the reply, it is addressed as well, the reply to their response or in that particular series of filings. It's in there, and again, we can polish that up. There is, again, there's a recorded interview and a recorded statement.
The third interview.
We certainly can provide to Your Honor for review. That ultimately we believe their statements of the defendant, of course, that we believe would be admissible.
This is why we haven't heard the third interview yet. It deals with the roadside. Yes. Can you just tell us what he says, Creighton, so we know?
And what is the state's theory of admissibility of the roadside shooting?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, as we argued back in December and as argued in those particular briefs, what we see is a chain of circumstances that are connected for an extended period of time that particularly highlight and start in June 7th. We've gone into, obviously, Your Honor, moving into the financial situation as it went into July and the efforts to shore up that particular money, the loans. Mr. Burney testified to that today. But of course, Mr. Murdaugh, there's already been evidence admitted that he was $192,000 short and that Chris Wilson covered that. The evidence goes on that in that particular interim of time, and again with the state's theory, that he's able to do his best to try to cover things up in that interim period. But then everything comes to a head, as already has been testified to in September 4th. Chris Wilson, of course, has also already testified that particular day on September 4th,
what your theory is,
that he had, he finally got the defendant to agree to meet with him.
We know.
And confronted him about that 192, which again is right at the heart of the Ferris fees, which are right at the heart of June 7th,
That's
2021.
not a legal standard.
And had that confrontation with him. The admissions that were made have already been testified to. And then with a short period of time,
Creighton, the law,
in response to that, that the side of the road shooting happened. You've already heard testimony here from Ms. Proctor.
He's heard all
that,
of
course,
this. What he
the
wants
initial
is your
reaction of
theory,
everyone
counsel.
is, oh my gosh, the real killers are back. And that's precisely under the state's theory, the effect that the defendant intended. And there will be, from these recorded statements, ultimately evidence offered that was not true, and he had told lies, Your Honor, about that particular, and that would be the recorded statement that we would offer about when he admitted that he had been untruthful to law enforcement about the circumstances of that shooting. I don't intend to go into great detail about that. I'm just trying to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, we know.
And then get out.
That's
I'm not
not legal
trying to use the term that I've used before, Gilbert Lilly.
The statement that you
getting from point A to point B is not legal grounds.
That you say you want to put in a recorded statement.
That's correct, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
What's the length of that recorded statement?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's less than 15 minutes, Your Honor.
No, it's longer than that, no more than 30. Mr. Griffin and I were there when he gave the recorded statement.
Aren't
We
you all
called
wonderful
them to
attorneys?
give the recorded statement.
Aren't you all great
And
letting
the
everybody
gist of
just talk to the
recorded
police?
statement is what, Mr.
Your
Harper?
Honor, okay, so Mr. Murdaugh
They're just letting this man
had
talk to
somebody
everybody.
shoot him in the head on the roadside to get to have a $10 or $12 million insurance policy paid to his son Buster. Now, he believed it was a suicide contestability cause, so he had somebody shoot him in the head. No question they shot him in the head. No question the intent was to kill him. He fractured his skull, had a brain bleed.
Everybody hunts
was
so much.
airlifted to Savannah
it's a
Hospital.
miracle he's alive.
It didn't kill him. He intended to die. And the recorded statement, he immediately went to detox because he was planning to go to detox anyway.
You mean rehab?
Mr. Griffin and I went down to Atlanta. We met with him in detox. He'd been through a
I thought he went to
horrible
Florida.
experience, shot in the head, and then detox. And we informed him the police were looking for whoever shot him. And he, at that point, said, look, this is what happened. And I don't want them wasting, and literally he said, I don't want them wasting resources trying to solve this shooting when those resources could be used to find who killed Maggie and Paul.
Did he say that?
We picked up the phone. We called SWED. We put him on the phone with SWED to have him explain exactly what happened.
New information.
This wasn't a result of a SWED interrogation. This was a voluntary statement. So they quit wasting resources looking for, and he told them who shot him in the head.
Huh.
And a guy named Eddie Smith, who was his drug dealer. So that's.
And you all have brought his name up a couple of times through
Yes, you did.
cross-examination. Is he on the state's witness list?
Yes, Your Honor. But Your Honor, one aspect of that, and I think this is what highlights the relevance
shit,
in
oh, shit,
connection
oh,
with this
shit.
particular case, is that in the wake of the side of the road shooting, Mr. Murdaugh's initial claim was that some unknown individual had a flat tire, and some unknown individual, supposedly under the guise of stopping for help, then suddenly shot him in the head. He went so far as to draw have with a composite artist to draw a composite photograph. Again, I'm not trying to get into too much with the detail, but
Get
that, of
into the
course,
detail, Craig. We're in the
effect
fucking
of
weeds
that
now,
is that
buddy.
he's been targeted by some unknown individual. That was a complete lie, and that's the point of that statement.
If the issue here is.
What's the
that
legal
Mr.
grounds,
Murdaugh
though,
lies,
Creighton?
I mean, really? Are we
somebody
at that?
just
I
laugh
mean,
in
we've
court?
come $10 million through lies, and now this piece
Somebody
of
just
evidence
laughed in
becomes
court.
relevant because it proves he lied again months after the murder. There's no, he's trying. He didn't do it,
I'm
and I
gonna
think
need
they
the
will
legal
concede he
grounds
didn't
here.
do it to get some sort of sympathy. He did it to be dead.
The judge
why
absolutely
he
wants to
did
hear
it.
from Cousin Eddie.
And unfortunately, Eddie Smith, at 4 feet, couldn't shoot somebody in the head and kill him. He meant to.
I don't
That's
believe
what
that.
Mr. Smith would say.
Mr. Smith has given no less, I'm set up to cross-examine him, I know this, 6 different explanations
Uh-huh.
for that and any other event you ask him about, from wasn't there.
Everybody's such
to,
prolific hunters.
I was there and I saw Alec, he'd been shot, to I was there and I tried to stop Alec, to
Well, I
yes,
will
I
say,
shot him
Dick
in the head.
knows we want the
but
tea, and he's
the
giving it to
fact of
us.
the matter
It's
is,
fair.
the
Thanks, Dick.
cross-examination of Mr. Smith is something I'm looking forward to. Now, but
Same.
this particular event had nothing to do with what happened on June 7th, other than he lied about something else. And 404.
Oh, I'm here for Dick and Cousin Eddie.
Unless there's a specific, not motive. I mean, I don't understand what the 404, 403 analysis would be on
I
this.
don't
I know
either.
what the 403 analysis is.
I'm looking for the
The
law.
prejudice outweighs the probative. The 404 is what of the 4 things that 404 is admitted for, which one is this?
I agree. You're right, Dick. He's
Your Honor.
absolutely right. Which one is this, Creighton?
Argue it in the morning, so this is just a
Preview?
prelude to tomorrow morning.
2 things. 2 things. If Mr. Harpootlian wishes to stipulate in front of the jury that his client is a liar, the state's willing to accept that stipulation. The second thing is, Your Honor, is that what actually happened on the side of the road is not what's important to this particular case. What is important, Your Honor, is that it's in reaction to the confrontation with Chris Wilson about the fares fees that came to the head on June 7th, 2021, and it's about what the defendant said, that he was attacked by an unknown assailant as he was trying to change a tire, and went so far as to do a composite drawing, and it
wants the
created
tea.
the effect, as this investigation had gone on, that, oh my gosh, the real killers are back to finish the job. And that's precisely what he intended. And he ultimately admitted that was a lie. So the
the judge is
circumstances of what
thrilled.
happened on the side of the road are not what the state is focused on. What is important is what the defendant said, how he attempted to use that, and that it was actually a falsehood. And and you heard Ms. Proctor testify. It had that exact effect. That, oh my gosh, the real killers are back.
But I think the state will concede his object on the side of the road was to be dead. That's what the act was, to kill himself.
Plan.
Now, what happened after that? After he
It
was
was part
taking
of
Savannah
his
and had a brain
plan.
bleed and a fractured skull, and when he came out of all that and realized, I'm not dead. How is that relevant to June 7? Your Honor, we can beat this dead horse a little bit more in the morning.
Great.
But allow us to give you, I don't know, this crazy idea of giving maybe some more raw to look at.
All right.
Plan.
Is this the sole purpose of Mr. Smith's testimony, or you have other things to
And
talk with him
the audio,
about?
the audio.
Well, he's on the witness list. I didn't say necessarily that
You
we're
didn't.
calling him. What
But
I'm
now we
trying
want
to
it-
do
we
again
want it to
is
happen.
to limit the presentation to just what's relevant to this particular trial that we have here today. And so I would have.
We're talking, discussing now this
Eddie Smith.
motion excluding testimony, but who's your witness to talk about what you're arguing?
We would have a law
defendant's
enforcement
audio.
witness come in and testify as to the circumstances of that statement. And again, I'm trying to limit it and to what's very focused to what's relevant to this trial, and that is the intended effect that he had and its reaction to the confrontation and the symmetry between June 7th and September 4th.
Do you have anything in addition to what you all provided a couple of months ago, seemingly?
Those two documents, we don't have a written document prepared at this time, but we can certainly work on some additional discussion this evening, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, well, we'll reconvene at 9:30.
Do this all again in the
All right,
morning.
very good.
We have an hour more of this in the morning. The judge is so ready to learn about Cousin Eddie. The court is here for it. He's like, his name's been brought up multiple times. Yep, his name's been brought up multiple times. Cousin Eddie is actually the cousin of, hold on, I gotta swoop. We're gonna work our way backwards. We're gonna swoop a doop, and then we're gonna work our way backwards. Let's go to the end of court as we swoop. The end of the court day, they were talking very much about Cousin Eddie, whether he's going to testify, and Alec's third interview with the police that we know the prosecution thinks they're going to get into. They brought it up in opening statements that there were these 3 interviews. Yes, I did 3 interviews. I did it wrong. That there were these 3 interviews. Now they're trying to get this last interview in front of the jury where Alec talks about lying at the roadside incident, it seems. So then we got to whether that means Cousin Eddie's going to come up. And we saw Dick saying, well, I'm ready to cross-examine Cousin Eddie. And he's given no less than 6 different statements about how this all went down and stated very clearly to the court, Alec intended to die. Well, here's the thing. When you're using other crimes, wrongs, or acts, you can use them to prove motive. We've heard the prosecution argue about proving motive over and over and over again. But once you get after the crime, does what he does in September prove his motive for June? Probably not. So you got to keep going. Opportunity? No. Intent? Maybe. Preparation? Possibly. It's not your time, Siri. Plan, knowledge, identity, absence of mistake, lack of accident. I think we are in preparation and plan. And I think there's a real argument, though the state has not articulated it, but I think there's an argument that this was his plan. His plan was to leave everything to Buster. His plan was to leave everything to Buster. Okay, if that's the plan, I mean, that's not quite what they've articulated and argued so far. The shifting theories of prosecution are a disaster for the state, and I think it'll make it hard for them to close because they have had seemingly shifting theories. You have to go with one to make it clear to the audience, the jury, and all of us watching at home. But if they're going with plan, then it's, look, this is showing his plan. This is his plan. When things get hard, gain sympathy and distract. Or it was his plan to leave everything to Buster, take out Maggie and Paul, and take himself out. And this was part of the plan. Or it's completely separate. It's not part of this string of events at all. He killed his family and thought he would have more time. He didn't have more time, and then everything collapsed. And then he had a confrontation with Chris Wilson, and then he called Cousin Eddie to shoot him on the side of the road because there was no other way out, because he had already pulled the escape hatch on killing his family. That's not going to come in testimony if that's how they articulate it. So it'll be interesting to see how they articulate this. And it'll be interesting to see if they move it forward. And it'll be interesting to see if they tie it back around to plan. But if they argue, well, everything crumbles and everything was coming down around him, so this is what he does. Well, then it's kind of removed from the murders. This is everything collapsed again after the murders, which just goes to show that the murders didn't buy him the time he thought he was going to get. And that's not motive, and that's not plan. That's subsequent action. The murders didn't buy him the time he thought, and everything still collapsed. And then he hired someone to kill him on the side of the road. Then the rest of that doesn't come in and shouldn't. So it really depends on how they articulate and argue this tomorrow to get to the point that maybe it was connected, but maybe everything collapsed after the murders because it didn't work the way he thought it would. And those are separate things. And in that case, the defense should just let it in, be like, see, he thought he was going to get all this time. Their motive makes no sense, because what actually happened is the murders brought more heat on everything, more attention to everything, and everything subsequently collapsed because of the murders. So with that, today has been a very interesting day. I'm going to turn off the truck backing up because honestly, it'll just distract me forever. And I want to answer some of your questions. And we got done a little bit early today, which is great because now I can get back to doing our roundup for last week that I'm so late on and deal with the podcast. And that's what I want to do. So with that, I'm going to try to round up the rest of this afternoon. We heard a lot from Maggie's sister. It was the type of testimony I think we've all been waiting for. Like, give us the information. Does Maggie's sister think Alec did it? That's the question that's been on my mind. Maggie's family hasn't been in this courtroom at all. And we saw it, or at least I think we saw it, on her face, that she does not trust or believe Alec anymore, and that all changed in September. Very interesting testimony. Will it sway the jury, or will the jury just think that the prosecution is piling on? I don't know. But it was very good testimony. I think they could have done without calling her husband. They've identified Alec's voice on these videos a million times at the kennels. And if the defense brings that up a lot in their defense case, then just bring it up on your rebuttal witnesses. Bring the husband as a rebuttal witness. There was absolutely no need. Marian was such a strong witness. They should have ended on that witness, and they should have just let it go for today, taken the break and started arguing. We've got another hour of them arguing about whether or not the roadside incident and Alec paying for the roadside incident will come up. I want to hear from Cousin Eddie. I don't know if we will or not. Cousin Eddie is an unpredictable mess of a witness for the state and the defense. And that's why I'm like, okay, I would love to know what Cousin Eddie has to say. But Cousin Eddie also has issues that his lawyer needs to be concerned about because he's being prosecuted for his connection to Alec too. And I worry that the defense is going to try to insinuate that Cousin Eddie got paid $500,000. The state brought it up, got paid, or no, the state never brought it up. The defense brought it up. Cousin Eddie got paid $500,000. Cousin Eddie got these checks. Cousin Eddie got that money, leaving it in the mind of the jury that maybe Cousin Eddie's the problem. I don't know. And that is a very interesting thing. So will we see Cousin Eddie testify? I don't know. I want to know what he has to say, but I don't know if we will. What we're supposed to get tomorrow is just a timeline witness, but it looks like the state might go over their time a little bit They have one witness that is going to tie this all together, supposedly, and they said they were resting their case tomorrow. Will the state rest their case tomorrow? That's the poll I'm going to put up tonight. Will the state be able to rest their case tomorrow? Will the roadside incident get in? Will the third interview get in? I don't know. I don't know. But I want to know. So we'll see that tomorrow. So that today, if there was ever a video to watch, this afternoon's trial testimony, Blanca's trial testimony, and Jeannie Seconder, those three are the absolute needed testimony. And then we'll see how this timeline witness is. I'm going to get to questions, and then we are going to, we're going to bounce so I can actually make a quick bits for you this week and get ready for tomorrow's podcast and go see my kiddos and my hubby for Valentine's Day. So you can go do your Valentine's Day things too. First, if you have not checked out our sponsor for this video, the link is down below. Just a warning, it's a really fun game. It's a really easy casual game. I've been playing it in the background. I find it very fun, and I find myself checking in on it quite a lot because I'm actually really enjoying it. Next time I do a game sponsorship, I'm going to be asking for like coins. I'm going to be like, hey, I need goodies because I've been playing so much. It's very fun. So I've been switching between my games. So don't forget to check that out. Second, if you want our Law Nerds limited edition that I've released for Valentine's Day, my team was like, Emily, what is happening with the shop? I'm like, oh yeah, I decided to launch something this morning. I do that sometimes. And my team is always so thrilled when I'm just like, oh, by the way, I did a thing. And they're like, thanks for telling us. We appreciate you. Emily, how far in advance do you plan? I'm getting better. But if you want to go to lawnerdshop.com, this Law Nerd mug is limited edition. We released it for Valentine's Day a few years back, have not sold it since. So it will be up through the rest of February if you are interested in that. That is where the Law Nerd merch lives. Say that 10 times fast. You're not going to be able to. That's where the Law Nerd merch lives. These zip up hoodies I've been wearing quite a lot. I love them. They are embroidered. The hats are embroidered. The water bottles hold up to travel. So I have not had any issues with shipping and stuff like that. So this is our favorite merch. And then you can also shop by the type of thing. This crew neck sweatshirt down here is the one I am wearing today. I absolutely love it. I'm going to be releasing one of these with a pink heart as well. I just have not had a chance yet. So with that, Rob said, how far in advance do you plan? Rob, Emily, and other ADHD superhumans. What does that mean? Exactly. It's like, I have an idea. Let me stay up until my idea is executed. I just won't sleep for 3 days. That's exactly what it is. Quick bits tonight. Fingers crossed. I'm going to record it. Fingers crossed. That is my goal. Oh, let's get to questions. I'm going to hold on to a few of these, and then I'm going to get us to questions and answer your questions. Let's go. Could Alec Murdaugh hired Eddie to lead the cops away from him? He never wanted to die. It was a distraction from the truth. Very possible. Look, I need to know how much Cousin Eddie hunts. Everybody else in this family hunts. They have a freaking hunting property. And you're telling me that he grazed him across the skull, like a graze wound on the skull from just feet away? These are hunters. I got questions. I've got questions. But Poot's arguing he intended to die. And with Poot argue, my brain just buffered. With Poot arguing that much that he intended to die, it makes me question it. Law and lumber. In advance of what? Anna Marie said, I want a Purple Heart. Emily, please, can we make that happen? On the merch? Yes, we can do some more Purple Hearts. Questions. Will Buster be on the stand? At some point, I think the defense might call Buster. I think so. Candy is awesome 86 says, as we say in the South, that don't make no sense to me. There's a lot of things that don't make no sense to me here. It's very, very strange. So nobody said they were good hunters. Fair. Very fair. Eddie said he wouldn't have missed if he tried to off him. And I think that's probably what he would testify to as well. Question, what happened to the OnStar info? They didn't ask questions. This is getting back to this is getting back to the morning testimony. They only had the custodian of records in. They have not had the person in who interpreted the data. So they've only had in the custodian of records that turned over the data. So we still have more to go there. Will there ever be Law Nerd hoodies in purple? The base hoodie in purple, probably not at the moment, but we have some things that we are custom ordering. So we will see. I have not found a purple that I like. Purple is tremendously hard. Look, I didn't used to believe the beauty YouTubers when they're like, it's really hard to make purple. It's hard to make a good purple. So it is being worked on. Have they checked to see if he Googled how to get shot in the head and live? I don't think they checked much. Truthfully, they didn't search his house. So I don't think they checked a lot. So that's what's going on with the OnStar. Aldi said soap opera wrapped in a novella, wrapped in a John Grisham novel, wrapped in randomized accounting records, and an enigma and cash. Yes. So a soap opera wrapped in a novella, wrapped in a John Grisham novel, wrapped in randomized accounting records, and my brain just stopped. I'm so tired. I apologize. And an enigma wrapped in cash. So I made it a Housewives tagline. It's a bad Housewives tagline, but I very much tried to work I'm an enigma wrapped in a riddle and cash, I think is what it was. So purple is my favorite color. It's a lot of our favorite colors. Question, when will the 500K box be available? I can't wait. We will get there. We are working on the art for them. So I will keep you posted. Those will be posted in the members spaces first. He slipped. He said he lied about something else. I don't know if that's a slip. I think they were saying, can we just, stipulate that he lied? He's like, no, not about this. He lied about something else. That's what I took from that exchange. I just love it when the judge smiles. Oh, the judge is sitting up there in his head going, Jerry. Like this judge is ready for these attorneys to spar and tell him all the things. You could see he's like, counsel, tell me this. Counsel, tell me that. The judge is bored with some of this testimony too. He is. And he's ready. When did Alec Murdaugh ask Blanca for the insurance card picture? Just Sarah. The morning of the roadside incident. That very morning. The morning before he had the conversation with Chris Wilson, before he was confronted about theft from one of his best friends, that very day. So I don't know. It could have been after the conversation with Chris Wilson that he asked her, but it was that day. He talked to Chris Wilson and the roadside incident happened not that long after. Judy said, did the medical examiner give estimate times of death? No, and nobody asked. Goes to consciousness of guilt and a pattern. I agree. Creighton never said those words. Creighton was asked for the legal grounds and the legal theory, and he started spouting back the facts at the judge. The judge didn't ask for the facts. The judge didn't ask for the circumstance. The judge asked for the theory and the law. Natalie, there is a link going through the chat on how you can turn on memberships. They are randomized through Google, but you can turn it on your account. Just make sure it's turned on your account. Michelle said you don't need your insurance card if you're dead. You need your insurance card for a hospital trip, for an ambulance ride, for which hospital they want you to take you to. So I don't know the state heard it and the state elicited that testimony. So the state has that testimony. And they are waiting for that testimony. So I've seen a lot of you in the chat say, but no, you don't need that testimony if you are going to die. Turduncan of a trial. Adele, yes. Yes, it is. So it is very interesting to see. It's very, very interesting to see. And I'm really interested to see where they will go with that. So thank you again, all Bridget Hurley and Peggy Lamb and everyone who's gifted memberships. Thank you so much for gifting to the law nerds for Valentine's Day. It is very, very kind. June 7th and September 4th are similar because they both consist of confrontation and then immediately violence. They do, but they need to fit that into a legal theory because generally what happens after the murder is not admissible in the murder trial. Generally. Sometimes it can happen if you are if you make a statement, if you deposit money, if you cash in a life insurance policy, but unrelated things don't come up. So yes, it's they need to articulate it well. Yesterday, the defense was planting in the news that Alec Murdaugh was going to take the stand. Fitz News reported it. I think it is absolutely a plant in the news, which is why I didn't talk about it much. The little detective name is huge for me. He tied it back in. It was kind of heartbreaking testimony to me. Just hearing that the kids were impacted by this and that the kids were trying to make sure that Alec acted right. But it's also odd to me because we've heard a lot about how much everyone was kind of partying and drinking, not through this trial, but in other venues. And so it's odd to me that they're worried about Alec having prescription pills, but then they're, partying and drinking. I don't know. It feels contradictory, or maybe it's just the pills are the problem and everything else is fine. I don't know. It was sort of nice to watch Jim get caught in his own cluster of chumminess. Yeah, it kind of was. A little bit of schadenfreude going on for me. You missed my super chat. I haven't gotten to all of them yet, Ashley, so I didn't. Can the judge yeet Jim for conflict of interest? And I might get to it as we're going through because we have a lot of super chats to get through. No, the judge can't. It could have come up earlier. The prosecution could have brought it up, but the judge can't eat it. The judge looked at Jim and was like, sure got yourself into a bit of a pickle there, buddy. Isn't the roadside proof that he will go as far as murder to resolve money issues and hide stealing? So that goes to his pattern of behavior or character. They haven't argued it that way either. So when you get to character, I'm very excited to talk about all of this. Can you tell I'm kind of geeked that I get to bust out my my rules? But when you go to character, you can talk about specific instances of conduct, but they haven't argued it that yet. So maybe they argue it as character, but so far they've been trying to argue it as motive under 404, and I don't think that's right unless they go to plan. So it will be interesting to see what they admit it under, or if they just say 403, it's relevant and it's not more probative than prejudicial. That it is, but after the fact, the judge really brought this up at the beginning, that this was the context of the thing, the res gestae, if you will. But after the fact, I don't know if it's continued context unless you absolutely tie in lock solid that this is a pattern of behavior and the character's already in and it's allowed to come in. And then it might be the res gestae. Melanie, are all statements a suspect give to law enforcement admitted into evidence? They are generally admissible, but not always. It depends. So if they're talking about something unrelated to the crime, that part might not come in, but they aren't hearsay because they're a party opponent admission. So it really, with most things with law, this is why you need lawyers. The rules are the rules, but the way they apply to fact scenarios are highly specific to the case. So I can't make it generalized always, generally. This particular witness has nothing to do with the murders other than Alec lied about something else. Dick Poot, 2/14/23. Way to go, Dick. True. Lied about something. Oh, this was the quote, lied about something else. Yep. Fair. That was the slip. I see what you guys are saying. Yes, and I agree. The whole quote and context really helped. Thank you for that, Brianna. I feel like maybe having so many people identify the voices is like saying he was there. He's the only one who came out alive that night. Maybe. Theory, the defense is having so many people verify the voices on the Snapchat video because it's a clip of a longer video and there are no audible gunshots in the video. Allison, I don't know. If that's true, the defense will have to introduce it. And if the prosecution's hiding something like that, the jury's going to fucking hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Whenever it feels like the state's hiding something, it feels really, really gross. Really gross. Lauren L said, I always doubted the insurance reasoning regarding the roadside. Lawyers know if there's a suicide clause, always thought it had more to do with furthering the vengeance target narrative and hiding his involvement. And that might be what it is. His insurance did not have a clause that ruled it out for suicide. It didn't. Or maybe it was also, that just gets into wild speculation. Maybe it also starts tying in Cousin Eddie a bit more deeply. Granny Lil, hi Granny Lil, said, keeping me entertained. I'm so glad I'm entertaining myself today. Today was wild. Question, has any of Maggie's family been there during the trial? Not until they testified. Melinda said, have you ever reached out to an attorney during a case that you are not part of to give them advice? No. If not, you should. Let's do this. Oh, no. Oh, no. Nope. I learned in high school that you do not give unsolicited advice. It will generally come back to bite you in the ass. Also, helping does not help. They know more about these cases than I do. We're just calling it on the field, but we are not in the case files, in the strategy, in the witness to come next. I don't have any of that. We are calling it as we see it, which is why I kind of love the phrase court casting, because it is like sport casting. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know the coaches. I am seeing what they are doing day by day by day and how they are building the case to those of us that don't have the case file, so we can all try to understand the case that's being presented to this jury and then talk about it. Talk about what the objections mean. Talk about how the judge is ruling. Talk about the spicy stuff that happens and why the spicy stuff is so interesting. And then the legal differences from, a great cross-examination of the DNA expert that I was like, oh my God, this is such a good cross-examination. And y'all are like, bored. We're bored, Emily. I'm like, I know, but this is a really good cross-examination of a technical expert. So bringing those perspectives, but no, I would never. I'm not asked. And if I am asked to consult on cases, I generally do not comment. And I can never say never. I do not give commentary on those cases. If I ever did give commentary on a case that I had been involved with, I would tell all of you. I don't want to be involved. I want to commentate. We need a poll. Will prosecution arrest tomorrow's Tina G? I'm going to put the poll up on the community tab so everyone can be involved. Question, should Jim have recused himself since he's so intertwined with the case? Jim wasn't appointed. He doesn't have to recuse himself. He could have not taken a lead role in the case. He could have not questioned this witness. There's a lot of ways he could have been involved in this case and not have put himself squarely in the crosshairs of these witnesses. And he chose not to. Hubris is a thing. Emily, that wasn't a wasted witness. The video puts back in the mind of the jury that he was there after Maggie's sister's testimony. It's powerful. I appreciate the perspective. It might have been just to show them the video again. Kim T said, my heart hurts for the entire family. I also feel sad for AM. I'm in disbelief that he could do this to his family. And I think you are not alone in that thought. It's a horrible thing. Jeannie Seckinger's clip. It's not hearsay if they said it to me, just took on a whole new meaning. It's not hearsay if they said it to me. And I loved that clip. It's not exactly how hearsay works, but I loved that clip. Next week is a short week as well. Yes, next week is a short week because we have Monday off. I work in the legal field, but not familiar with criminal. Thank you for covering this. You're welcome. Criminal law is fascinating and unpredictable. I mean, all trial is unpredictable, but this case has had very few moments, and we haven't had a ton of the lawyers fighting with each other because there just haven't been a lot of objections. But when they do, it's been very interesting. I will say the quality of the legal sparring in this case has been very interesting because sometimes we get technical legal arguments. Sometimes they're just arguing the fact and hoping the judge helps them find a legal argument. It's very interesting to watch. Nana X2 said Maggie was still suspicious. All the late night calls from his family she complained about, I think it's very suspicious. And Nana, to pile on, to gild the lily if we can, the night nurse said he wasn't going over there at night. And it was very unusual for him to be there at night. So it was a matter of contention to Maggie that he got a bunch of calls at night and was always at beck and call to his family, and his other siblings weren't. But then the night caretaker said, Michelle said, that he wasn't going over to his mom's at night and that it was very unusual. So the jury has heard all of that, and maybe they will put it together. So whether it was related to his addiction, whether it was related to other things, we don't know. And the jury's not going to have an answer, but the jury's going to have all the questions. because that is odd and it did stick out. Also, the jury didn't hear that Maggie was suspicious. That was only outside the presence of the jury, so maybe not. I don't know about little detective. What kid cares? I'm not surprised by that. There, especially, and I am not an expert in addiction. I just worked in the court system for a long time. There are definitely kids who end up being almost the police for addict parents. It doesn't surprise me. But again, not an expert in addiction. Don't say that I am. Just have some life experience. That didn't surprise me that he's trying to I don't know. It almost sounded like stabilize his family to make sure his dad was acting right. And that's really what it sounded like. He was trying to keep his dad in line. And that really doesn't surprise me. And especially because he's not a kid, he's in his 20s. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. His insurance had an unalive clause, but it had expired. I didn't know that it had expired, Holly. I haven't seen the document. I've just heard the reports. Why leave Buster alive? Maybe so he can go to law school and finish the family legacy. Maybe that's why he was so insistent on the jail calls and elsewhere that he wanted Buster to remain alive and carry on the Murdaugh legacy. And the only way to carry on the legacy is for Buster to remain alive and to get back into law school and for everyone else to be gone. So Buster was the one that was in law school till he was kicked out for cheating, and they were fighting to get him back in. It didn't work. Have we heard if there was blood on the steering wheel? We have heard that there was blood on the steering wheel. It had Maggie's DNA in it. Have you ever witnessed a defendant break down and confess during trial? Yes. I have, kind of. I wonder if she thought he was cheating again. I wonder that too. I'll tell that story. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Don't worry. Why does Alec remain seated when everyone else stands? He is in custody. It also looks like it's painful for him to stand up. Just Bystander said, if it was all about the boat accident, then why is Alec still alive? We know that he was with the dogs, as we heard on the Snapchat. I know. I think the kennels were wet because in the heat, you can cool the area off by spraying them down with water, makes it cooler for dogs at night. Very, very possible. Do they keep showing the video to keep it fresh for the jury? They might. And now we've learned new things, and we see that the kennels are wet at the bottom. New theory, maybe Paul found the pills and got into an argument out of desperation. I don't know. Maybe. Sandra D said, Emily, if it doesn't come out that Alex paid to be shot, might the jury believe it was the same person who killed Maggie and Paul? Yes. And that goes to the defense theory that the family was being targeted. They said the story changed, but we'll see. We'll just see. Boys Club being brought down by all these women. Emily, how many notebooks have you gone through? I'm almost at the end of my second one. Yeah, this one's almost done. I've got about this much left on the second one, but is this my first one? I don't know if this is my first one or my next one. Oh, this is my next one. So don't worry. We've gone through a few, but I love the notebooks this shape. They're really, really easy for me to write on. I just want to give her a hug. Same. Emmy said, Love and Pies has been my addiction for a year. It's so good. I'm glad to hear it. Southern sweet tea at its finest, large and over ice. That must have been earlier. Looks like AM is giving those Tic Tacs the blues. He was giving them the business today. With new info via Jim, shouldn't he be recused? He can't be recused. He's hired. Only his client can fire him. Speaking of recused, though, this week's podcast for The Emily Show, if you haven't listened to my podcast, I would love it if you would leave it a review. It's been doing wonderfully on Spotify and Apple. Thank you for loving on the podcast. There's also a podcast playlist here on YouTube. But this week's podcast is talking about Alec Baldwin trying to get the special prosecutor recused in New Mexico. And I think it might work. Also, there was some stunning information. Those of you who have been watching lots in the law genre might have already seen the probable cause affidavit on Rust, but I was stunned. There was a lot of new information in there that I was like, what? So it was wild. It was wild. Okay. Quick story. I had a fraud case. I loved fraud cases. The defendant fucking hated me and decided to testify. It was a co-defendant case. And the co-defendant had already pled guilty. So we were already done with the co-defendant. And the lead defendant was on trial against moi. He appealed the conviction and argued that I used an unflattering booking photo of him, which was very, very prejudicial. It was an unflattering booking photo, but it's because booking photos are fucking unflattering. It wasn't unduly unflattering. He didn't like my PowerPoint presentation in closing, that I used red font. It implied that he was guilty. But he decided to testify about the scheme that they were running. Co-defendant had testified. And when he was testifying, I was asking him a lot about the co-defendant because he was getting agitated. He was the brains behind the operation, not the co-defendant. But he and his counsel, well, his lawyer was trying to, it was all the co-defendant, it wasn't this defendant. Okay. So as I am cross-examining this defendant, because why testify? But this defendant knew that he was smarter than me. And we're going, and he clearly doesn't think much of me. And he was 3 seconds away from being like, oh, sweetie. So as we're going through the testimony, and I'm saying, so co-defendant did this. Yes. Co-defendant did that. Yes. Oh, so co-defendant did this. Yes. Do you know how he figured out that? No. Oh, he did this and he did this and he did this. And we're going on and on and on about the co-defendant. And I get to the end and I'm like, so the co-defendant decided to do this, like the whole scheme. And he goes, he's not smart enough to come up with this. I did. I was like, oh, well, thank you very much. And I sat the fuck down. So was it a full-blown confession in court? I think it was, but it was during cross-examination. It wasn't just somebody standing up in the middle of trial going, I confess, but it was great. I was like, oh, thank you. And then I literally sat down. I didn't think that's what he was going to say. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't ask another single question. He wasn't smart enough to do all of that. And that's why I told him what to do. Done. Sit down. Sit down now. Sometimes I know when to stop talking. I've gotten worse at that since I started streaming. I've definitely gotten worse at that. Yes. Oh, thank you. Sit. Yes. He didn't see the trap coming. He did not see the trap. We built the trap and then we sprung the trap, and the trap was based on ego. And I loved a trap based on ego. It was my favorite. I don't have a ton of ego. I really just don't. I'm wrong a lot. I say shit wrong. I'm neurodivergent. I fuck things up all of the time. If I had an ego, it would be crushed daily. So I just want to ask the questions, and it helps when they underestimate you. But it was very good. He was convicted in, God, maybe an hour, but the jury did clap when I gave my closing argument, and that was the only case that ever happened in. And then it was that case. After that case, my husband is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I am going to wait in line and I am buying myself an iPhone. And he's like, what? I'm like, it's my guilty iPhone. I'm going to go get my guilty iPhone. iPhone. I still have that iPhone in my shelves back here because it is the first generation iPhone. And I went and purchased it after that trial. I was still in my clothes from work. I was like, iPhone. Yes, I bought myself presents. I can buy myself presents after verdicts. I can buy myself flowers. So I went and got myself an iPhone. It's back there somewhere. First one. I was thrilled. Stephen asked, divorce attorney testimony incoming. I don't think so. They would have asked the sister. Emily Outdoors said, my mom lost her sister to a murder almost 20 years ago. I'm sorry. She still gets emotional talking about her. The pain never goes away. It doesn't. To anyone who has lost, pain of loss is a unique thing for sure. Pain of loss when there is criminal activity involved is an entirely different thing. And that's from not just work experience, but from personal experience. It's different. Losing someone to a terminal illness is very different than losing someone at the hands of another, which is different than losing someone very suddenly. It's grief is fucking horrible, but it can be very, very different. So with all of that, y'all take care of yourselves. I hope you buy yourself presents today. I absolutely adore you. Law nerds, I love you. I do. I love this community. I'm very protective of this community. I love our chat. I love our moderators that help keep this chat the amazing place to be, that it is a place where we can talk about the cases and we can talk about what's happening in law, and we can have a little bit of sass and snark along with it if it's appropriate. But we also treat our cases and the people involved in them with compassion, because so many of you have been through so much and survived so much. I can't tell you how special this community is to me, how special I know it is to the mods, because we talk about how much we love y'all all the time. There are times I will clip out comments I get from the YouTube videos and send them to the mods and be like, I love our law nerds so much. And they're like, we do love our law nerds so much. You make the internet an absolute joy. This community is a joy. And I am so, so happy to be here with all of you. So know that this is a space where we are just, myself, the mods, Team Baker, my family, we just adore you. And I adore how much you love on each other, how much support you show to each other in the comments, in the chat, how much you rally around your shared experiences, even when those shared experiences are really, really hard. It's a very special place to be able to share, to be vulnerable, to be open, and to be accepted in a community that is so compassionate and brilliant and diverse. And I just absolutely cannot say enough how much I love it. I just absolutely love it. And I love that when people come in and start with fuckery, everybody's like, we don't do that here. And they're like, ugh. And then they leave. It's great. They just go, they know. And so then we just end up with us. Even when just us is 40,000 plus people, it's still just us. And you always have a home here in this chat. And I am so thankful to get to talk through these cases with you and lose my mind with you when it is appropriate, and DoorDash myself some donuts in the morning because they were absolutely needed. It's just absolutely incredible. So take care of yourselves today. Have the day that you want. Enjoy it. Give yourself a warm hug. Go play Love and Pies. I'm going to take a bath tonight, and it is going to be long. It is going to be amazing. And I am ready for it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being law nerds. Thank you to all the mods. Have a beautiful Valentine's Day. I know we spent it on a very spicy murder trial day, but honestly, no matter what the case, I would rather spend my time with you than anywhere else online. And I appreciate it. Hugs to all of you. Thank you. And I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning to hear the attorneys argue about the same shit they argued about this afternoon again. Woo! I hit that twice and I didn't mean to. That's why you stay all the way to the end. You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.